man's gunning for me tonight. I spent the last week running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive. Let's get lost tonight. Lord, who's on my
right? Tyrese Halliburton needs an attitude adjustment. Hello, wackos. Welcome to another episode of Without a Country. I am Corinne Fisher. I'm also live streaming right now on Instagram just because we're starting so late. As I was explaining to everyone in what is usually the pre-show, but is now the In Sync show, is that, the Knicks have been having a lot of Wednesday games. And for that, I do apologize. I am not in charge of the Knicks schedule, but we here at Without a Country are big Knicks fans. It's two of us. It's me and Mike Harrington, but we both have agreed that we will be watching the Knicks games when they are on Wednesdays. So sometimes we will be starting the show at 11:47 p.m. And let me tell you, the energy in the East Village is electric right now, even though the Knicks did lose in an upsetting game. My mom just texted the group chat, Harrington, which is just me and my brother and her talking about the Knicks right now. It was a smooth transition from my father's death to the Knicks game, which he would have approved. I did when the Knicks beat the Celtics. I was like, man, I wish Randy was around to see that because that was 25 years in the making. That being said, I emerged from my apartment because I was all dressed and ready to go for the show as soon as the Knicks game ended. I emerged from my apartment, and it was a lot of people saying fuck Halliburton on the streets of the East Village. And I said, you know what? Even in times of loss, even in times of sorrow, I love New York City. New York City keeps it real. The first fans I saw were two straight women. I know you say, Corinne, how did you know they were straight? I've lived in this city a long time. And you also know I think everyone's gay. So if I'm saying these two women were straight, they were straight. Because I think everyone's gay. And they were just had the Knicks jerseys on and all the paraphernalia, and they were just holding each other and they were like giggling and they were just like, I knew Halliburton was going to be a problem. And they were together and they were enjoying the Knicks together without any men. And it just made me so happy. I said, you know what, that's exactly the first set of Knicks fans that I needed to see. And then I saw a lot of other guys, but they were great. I love Knicks fans. I love watching the games in sports bars. The only time, in fact, you will find me in a sports bar, of my own free will is when the Knicks are playing. And I have a lot of good sports bars right on my block, so it's been pretty fun. But I am physically in pain from that game. Physically in pain. I mean, at the end of the game, the Knicks were shooting 3-pointers that if Thibodeau had put me in the game, I could have shot just as bad. They weren't even close. They weren't even close. I'm very stressed out.
As someone who I spend a lot of time watching fourth quarters and overtimes of basketball games for live betting angles, right? Like that's just...
I knew betting was going to be involved somehow.
That's the kind of guy that I am, and I can tell you the overarching theme I hear from announcers, and certainly watching it with my own two eyes, is late in games, especially in overtime games, tired legs, short threes.
Oh, okay, because they can't jump.
That's it. Like, there's just nothing. There's no juice left in the legs to get it up like that.
Yeah, anymore. And I mean, obviously, I'm being an asshole. Like, I'm sure they must be exhausted.
Trying to get a 3 off in that game, you might actually pull something.
Right. Yeah. All right, I'm going to the YouTube, guys. So if you're still on here, go to YouTube. It's oh my God. That was so crazy. Oh, yeah. And so my mom's just sent this stat to the group chat. Oh, actually, my brother sent it, and then my mom explained it to me because it was something from Reddit, a screenshot that about how this was a historically bad loss for the Knicks, and it was written in betting. I can't understand the betting terms, and I said, "Wow, this looks bad, but I wish I could understand this." And then my mom translated it for me, and she said, "The Knicks are the first team after 1,414 others to blow a 9-point or higher lead with a minute left or in overtime of a playoff game." That's a historical stat. Do you have any commentary on that, Michael?
So what I will tell you is I turned to AJ when we got to 2 minutes and 14 seconds left in the game.
Right.
And I said, I've seen the Pacers come back from this before. He made the mistake of celebrating Karl Anthony Towns going 9 of 10 with his free throws and said, this is incredible.
Yeah.
Love having him because it was so tough having Mitch in there. Cat, 9 out of 10. Immediately next shot, Cat misses.
Oh, my God.
And we go to overtime because
God.
of those 2 missed free throws down the stretch by Cat and OG. It was very painful.
Oh, my God.
It reminded me of, it really did remind me of Reggie Miller with the 8 points in 40 seconds. It really had that feel to it.
Right. And I also, I don't, Charles Barkley for the whole playoffs has just expected nothing from the Knicks and is so, speaks so slanderously about them, and it pisses me off.
It's his role. He's
To be an asshole?
No, to be the heel. Like, he picks a team, and he's like, yeah, they stink, they suck. And the further they go, the deeper he digs his heels in, because that's how Chuck is.
Oh, Chuck.
And it's like, it's fun to prove Chuck wrong, too, though.
I don't, again, I only follow the Knicks, so that's just like a bit that he does every year.
I feel like he kind of plants his flag on one team being his team and one team being the team that is awful, terrible. Can't believe him.
So what team is his team this year?
I don't know.
Oh, because I mean, he called it for the Celtics, and then obviously the Knicks disproved him, and then he also called it for the Pacers, and we'll see ... ellipses. But anyway, all right, I'm sure you guys are sick of hearing about the Knicks talk. That's not why you tuned in. But just to explain what's going on, if you're a Knicks fan, this is very exciting. If you're not, you're like, all right, let's get to the news, and don't worry, we will. So welcome, week 2 of me not being in the mayoral race. Honestly, it's so funny because as swiftly as my brain recalibrated to being a politician or a political candidate. I was never a politician. Yuck. A political candidate. My brain has very quickly been able to recalibrate back into me. No, I'm not into comedian yet. Like, the jokes are still slow, and I haven't gone back on stage though. So I think pretty quickly when I go back on stage, hopefully it'll come back. The same thing happened during COVID. Like, I wasn't thinking in jokes at all. I think it was like 4.5 months that I went without telling jokes. So this mayoral campaign will be the longest lapse I've ever had in doing stand-up since I started in 2010. It's now, 2025. So that's pretty crazy. I have some jokes written. Obviously, I'll be talking about the race and stuff. So I'm excited to take that material back on stage. I finally put in some avails for June. I had to think if I wanted to give myself June off, but I don't think so. I think because, I ended this race about a month and a half earlier than I thought I would, that I have less of an excuse to take a break. And I, had all that break time while we were fighting in court. I guess break time, it wasn't very relaxing. But yeah, so I'm going to try to get right back into it and figure some stuff out. And hopefully my comedy brain comes back as soon as I step back on the stage. But we'll see. And then, of course, one of the main clubs that I play at closed while I was on hiatus. So that'll be an issue that I'll have to figure out as well. But, small businesses can't stay ahead. And I would have fixed that had I been able to have the opportunity to be mayor. So, that's where we are now, guys. And again, please keep sharing anything that's happening in municipal politics with me at withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. I'm very, very interested in that in general. And I want to, now that I have all this new knowledge of municipal politics and its workings and its corruption, I want to help highlight what's happening by you, because most likely it is not getting enough traction, and things that you could be making a stink about are happening right under your nose that shouldn't be. And I just want us all to get into the, I guess, good habit of keeping an eye what's happening in municipal politics, not just in national politics, because I think there is something more glamorous about national politics. These people, literally become celebrities, which I have a whole problem with, but they literally become celebrities, and so it makes it more entertaining in a way to follow. That being said, I think when you get into municipal politics, like if you kind of get interested in it and maybe make a few friends who are interested in it, that's going to be, an indie punk band that you discovered before everyone else, and it will become its own thing. Like municipal politics is actually extremely juicy. You just have to find the people covering it and follow them, but you can very much get invested in it, even though it doesn't have maybe a national effect. And it's even more interesting in a lot of ways because these are people who, unlike many national politicians, you can access. Right? Like if you have a podcast in your city, you have a lot higher likelihood of being able to get a local politician on a show that you're hosting. Or if you're a journalist or even in journalism school, getting one of those people to sit down with you, and you just have more access to them. And so, if there's someone who you love or hate, like think of it as like this developmental client. Like, think of all the people who got to meet AOC in New York City when she was a waitress and now get to hear, tell a story like I knew her when. But this is the time when these people are in municipal politics that you can get FaceTime with them. So get that FaceTime now before they become who they ultimately are going to be. Like it's almost it's an investment in the national future. And also, it's a time when I think you want to get to people before they become completely immersed in the nonsense of the machine. And perhaps if you get their ear and you bring forth, I don't know, something of interest, like whatever thing it is that you're fighting for in your town or your city, like this is the opportunity that you have where if you get a little traction on that, you can actually make it happen if you catch someone's ear and you present it in the right way. So that's just my 2 cents. But I think it could be a pretty cool opportunity if you frame it the right way for yourself, Let's move right into the enemy of the state. This week's enemy of the state, and I apologize, Mike, I know this is your hero, but it is Kid Rock this week is the enemy of the state. He's been really running his mouth, and he's... What is that? Is that the music you play when you like my enemy of the state and you disagree? All right, so... Kid Rock this week has been running his mouth about liberal women, and I'm taking this Newsweek article. It's called Kid Rock and Dolly Parton's sister, did we even know she had one? Clash over U.S. birth rates. And what a headline. God bless America. It says Dolly Parton's sister fired back at Kid Rock after the musician blamed plummeting birth rates in the United States on, quote, ugly-ass, crazy liberal women. Singer and songwriter Stella Parton, a frequent critic of President Donald Trump, issued her own set of insults to Lil Weasel Rock. And again, this is where the Democrats just really aren't good at the what is even the word that I'm looking for? The insults, I guess. We're really not good at the name calling and the insults. And I highly recommend that the Democratic Party, and I can set this up for you guys, Democratic Party, you need to set up a meeting with roast comics, and we can write for you and prepare you with an arsenal of insults for all the top people in the Republican Party. Because between Lil Weasel and Pokemon Go to the polls, we're not doing well as a party, okay? So we need insults in the arsenal. Is it great that this is what politics have devolved into? No, but you need to have an insult ready, okay? Because if you're gonna even try to go back with something and it's Lil Weasel, you're not gonna win. Why it matters. Fewer babies are being born in the United States than in the past. Experts have warned of a silver tsunami population time bomb after the U.S. Census Bureau suggested that by 2035, older adults will outnumber children, a first in American history. This trend is echoed across many other parts of the world, with European Union member states recently meeting to discuss the strain an increasingly elderly population will place on welfare systems and public finances. And additionally, if we're talking about, we're already concerned about the conservative, the rightward movement politics is making. If we have an increased elderly population, that's just a group of people who tend to be voting a little bit more conservatively than young people, although who knows with men these days. And so I don't think this is going to be the future that we want politically, unless the people who are voting Democratic now, and especially women who really did not flop very much to the right at all for this election, you need to maintain your want to be left-leaning into old age. And I know we all think that we're not going to slip into conservative values as we age, but my thoughts are that we might feel the same way as we did when we were younger, but then young people will want us to move more leftward, and that's where the disconnect will happen. And, they will most likely get a candidate that matches that, and they will want to vote for that candidate. But I think that's the problem a lot. As generations age, I don't think it's that maybe they are turning conservative. It's that they are unable to keep up with the progressive pace of the young people below them. India, China, and Japan are facing similar problems. This month, it emerged that Russia has resorted to classifying its own population data as its birth rates plunged to a 200-year low. Some countries are bucking the trend, however. According to the United Nations, the population of sub-Saharan Africa is projected to double by 2050. What to know? Fox News recently aired a clip of a protest in Milwaukee and segued into the interview with Kid Rock by asking whether anyone with female armpit hair attended his concerts. Hard-hitting journalism there. Rock, a longtime Trump ally, laughed and replied, "We have this low birth rate in America, and it all made sense to me. It just hit me right now because who's going to sleep with these ugly-ass, broke, crazy, deranged TDS liberal women?" And if you guys are left-leaning and you don't know what TDS stands for, it's Trump derangement syndrome. You'll often see TDS written on, anything I post. You look at these rallies, it's like a bunch of women that no guy wants to sleep with and a bunch of dudes that want to sleep with each other. It's thought that by TDS, he meant Trump derangement syndrome, a pejorative term used to describe Trump's critics who are deemed to be irrational. Rock emailed Newsweek after the furor, and that's the part that annoys me because they kind of just group us all together. So obviously, I'm not taking these people very seriously, but when you write TDS under something that I post, it just shows me that you're not even looking at anything that I post, right? Because I feel like for a liberal, I've given Trump a lot of chances, and I do try to point out when he does something positive, because I think to not do so hurts Democrats. It does not help us. Again, my whole thing is about seeking the truth, and that includes when someone like Trump is running for office, that whatever he promises voters, he should be making good on during his presidency. And I think many Trump voters can agree that he is not doing that. So that's my problem. And again, I think I'm pretty good at giving people chances. Rock emailed Newsweek after the furor caused by his initial comments, quote, "Thank you for allowing me to clarify my statement. I meant to say super duper ugly liberal women." That part was funny. I feel like, Mike, that part you probably would like. Stella Parton replied to a clip from the interview shared by Republicans against Trump on X with the comment, "Liberal women don't sleep with stinky, nasty, dirty, poor hygienic man babies who whine and disrespect them. They marry and sleep with real men." again, I have some notes to tighten that up a bit. Her post was liked more than 3,000 times, which is not a lot at all on X, and shared by more than 370 other X users. Again, very low numbers. On May 17th, she posted on X, seems like Lil Weasel Kid Rock will have to go fuck himself. No way he's going to get laid the way he disrespects women. Which, as we all know, unfortunately is not true. Famous people will always have sex with hot chicks, really no matter what. And that's something that we have to work on internally. Parton's representative told Newsweek on Tuesday when contacted for comment, she said about all she wanted to say about his disrespectful rant on women in general. Finally, women need to call this type of vulgarity out instead of being demure. What happens next? Rock has yet to respond to Parton's comments, and she has not mentioned him again on her social media feeds. I mean, I will give this to Kid Rock. You actually helped elevate a woman, because until today, until you went through this, I didn't even know that Dolly Parton had a sister. So thank you for elevating Stella Parton. Shout out. I'm going to go check out her music. What's interesting about this is he was commenting so much on the birth rate, and I was like, how many kids does Kid Rock have? And I looked it up. Kid Rock himself only has one kid. So if we're talking about declining birth rates, like that's like a pretty upsetting number. If you are someone who's going to publicly make commentary on liberal women, it being our fault that the birth rate is low, and you yourself only have one kid, who I looked into it more, who has a mother who was unable to care for him. So you're fucking someone crazy, apparently, Kid Rock. Obviously, they're crazy if they're fucking you. So, the calls are coming from inside the house, baby. You know how bad it has to be for Kid Rock to have sole custody of his one child? That's really bad. Things were not okay in that household. And then, to agree with Stella Parton, calling women who aren't having children ugly and crazy historically is not going to make them horny, So is your goal really to improve the birth rate? Like, is that really your concern, or is your concern actually just to be an asshole? Because, like, if your concern is to, and many people have, had this conversation before, but, like, this is not the way to get people to have more kids. It's just not. So what is your actual end game here? I do think that perhaps you've kind of there's a group of conservative women who have been mind fucked into that it is a good, like, kind of pick me girl energy, that it is like a good time to really get back to the roots of womanhood and bake pies and have kids. So maybe you guys will be having more. I don't know. Again, I'll be dead. So thank God. Mike, I see you smiling from the booth. Did you have some comments on Kid Rock's child?
So, I mean, look, if I was as rich as Kid Rock, I certainly would have had more kids. That being said,
sure.
A lot of his married life, he was married to Pam Anderson. It's like, and she came into the marriage with a bunch of kids. So it's like, she's not in a position where she wants to have new kids with Kid Rock. Can't have kids with a kid. Babies having babies.
How long were they married for?
A few years. I'm just saying, like, that's like the only committed relationship I remember Kid Rock ever being in publicly. And it's like,
but again, that kind of feeds into it. He's saying no one wants to, like, fuck. It's like, okay, well, you're also the problem.
He's fucking and just not having kids. He's probably fucking Lauren Boebert right now.
Possibly. Well, maybe they'll have a kid together. Well, that would be so sweet.
That'd be that would be a redneck demon child. That would be truly, that would usher in the idiocracy era like none other.
She's 38, so she still can do it. I was looking at, because I was like, I know she's like kind of close to my age.
It's, again, though, the thing is, I not to be glib though, I read this article before you came in, and it's one of those things where it's like you always talk about, right? Like it's not about the message, it's how the messenger's delivering it. And it's like, I don't think Kid Rock is off base here, right? Like, there is a generation of women who do not want to have children.
Yeah, but he's making it seem like it's because they're ugly and crazy that no one wants to fuck them when it's women ourselves who are deciding that we do not want to have children.
Sure, and it's like what Stella's saying is true too. You've echoed those same statements over and over again where it's like, yeah, women don't want to have children with man children.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, so, we've reached
I think that was always true. That we were just now talking about it openly. It's something that I think a lot of women didn't discover, that the people that they were dating were, I think a lot of women kind of thought, when I have a kid, that my husband's going to grow up. And I think a lot that didn't happen. And a lot of women didn't want to be publicly embarrassed by addressing that in public. But now cat's out of the bag. That's what I think.
I think here's the thing, though. I do think a lot more men did step up than are being given credit for here. And it's like, instead,
our
that
point
narrative,
is that you should not be given credit for doing what you should have been doing the whole fucking time.
But
That's our point.
Regardless,
we're not going to give you a pat on the back for doing 50% when you should have been already doing it.
Regardless, I'm saying the amount of men who were doing that, right, are overshadowed by the man cave dwelling minority of us, right? And it's like those guys are giving it a bad rap, and now women don't want to have babies with dudes.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, you can prove yourself. Like, it's not like liberal women can say whatever they want. They're still human beings, and they still want to, for the most part. I know some people who truly don't. They still, I think a lot of us still are interested in finding a partner. And you just have to be willing to, I think you have to be willing to approach it the way many people approach their career. And like, that's a serious talk that I had to have with myself. Like, I was dating, but I was like, I just literally don't care enough. And if I want to have a partner, I was like, I have to care the same amount about my relationships that I care about my career. And I was like, so once you, like, it's also like that kind of talk that you have to have with yourself. But I think most women even liberal women, I think, will give men so many more shots than they should have. That's what I think from studying relationships for the past, 13 years.
I think the big problem, though, is the audience that Kid Rock is talking to, right? Because it's like you've now seen this. Yeah, well, no, it's like it's the right's natural counterbalance response to the left with everything that he's talking about. Everything he's talking about does actually exist. There are women showing up to his concerts with, unshaven armpits, right? Like that is. No,
I think he's saying like they're not. Like, those type of women don't come to his shows. I think is what he's saying.
He said, "I don't know if they do."
Yeah, I think.
Regardless, the archetype that he's talking about does exist, right?
Of course.
And it's like more often than not, that archetype is not having children, before 32 or whatever. For the most part.
Before 32, the old age of 32.
No. I'm throwing out a random number because it's like.
I don't even know if that's true. I mean, I guess because we like openly talk about how contraception works on the left.
Fair.
But
it's like on the other side now you have this reaction where it's like all these bros who are super black-pilled against women who only hear these horror stories about women who don't let their husbands touch them and the guys who've gone through divorce and are now, living in crappy one-bedroom apartments, hating their lives, seeing their kids once every 2 weeks. Like, there's the counterbalance has spoken so much to the young people on the right that they've also alienated the opposite sex to a point where it's like you're both just as guilty of these lowering birth rates.
I like that point. That's a great point.
So it's like stop preaching to the same grifter culture that Andrew Tate is, right? Like any of these dudes are, Andrew Tate, how many kids does he have? Kid Rock's got one. These guys are not walking the walk of this thing, right? This He-Man Woman Haters Club is not actually going to raise a birth rate. Knock it off.
Okay, well, good. Hot take. I like that. And also, I don't know the answer to that question. How many kids does Andrew Tate have? None?
As far as I know, none.
Yeah, I was like, I never heard any. Oh, wait, on Reddit it says Andrew Tate says he has around 10 children. I doubt if he is a father figure for at least one of them. So he's claiming that he has... and that's also crazy to talk about birth rate, but then have it just be like your seed exists somewhere out in the ether, but you have no relationship with your children, as if that's something that one should aspire to.
You're Johnny Appleseed.
does Andrew Tate have kids? And if so, how many? Like, these are real articles. Andrew Tate, and then it says, like, and in this article, I think he claimed to have 20.
Do you think he's in an arms race with Elon?
I know. Well, that's what it feels like. So when asked about his children, he replied that he had many. I mean, that also feels like, he's calling like the way I say I have many daughters, but I just mean people who listen to the Guys We Fuck podcast, but I don't pretend that I actually have biological daughters. So in some interview that he did with Aiden Ross on YouTube, Aiden Ross, do you know who Aiden Ross is? I don't. He asked Tate about children. Tate said many. Ross then asked him if that meant two. Tate asked if Ross thought he was, quote, some bitch.
I only have 2 kids. What do you think? I'm a bitch. That's wild, dude.
When Ross asked him if he had 5, he got the same reply. Ross then jumped to 10 or 12, and Tate said it was, quote, around there. So whatever the actual number, Tate claims it is into double digits. He has claimed to want 20, although this came out in the same interview where he talked about needing to have children with different women because pregnancy is too slow. So it actually is seemingly pretty similar to Elon Musk, but it's funny that there are none
Yeah, let me see you stand next to your child, dude.
Why
Until
is
then,
this?
This is your girlfriend in Canada, dude. This is the girl from camp you had a kid with, dude. Get out of here.
Also, Andrew Tate makes me so mad because I love Romania, and he gives a bad name to Romania, and that pisses me off because they're so, especially in the U.S., we have so little knowledge of Romania, and I'm like, this is the fucking guy. That sucks. All right. All right. So moving on. Thanks to all my patrons. You guys have been holding it down. Week after week, we're getting more patrons. Thank you so much. I love you guys. All hail to our dictator, Hannah Pendergrass. Welcome to my new capitalist pigs, Michelle Boudreau and Ryan Reynolds, female Ryan Reynolds, not that one. And our new cutie, Carly Pierce. Thank you so much for being here. If you guys want to sign up for the Patreon, it's patreon.com/withoutaCountry, and you'll get one exclusive video news story every week. And just my eternal gratitude for keeping this show moving. I really appreciate it. Again, especially with all the money I spent on the campaign, and on top of that, taking a hiatus from stand-up and anything else entertainment related besides my podcast. It has been so helpful for you guys to keep the Corinne Fisher machine, and I hate the word machine now, but afloat. And so I really appreciate you allowing me to keep making content for you. It rules. Let's go into the wacko mailbag right now. I did ask if you're a Hassan Piker fan to please email me and explain to me why. I am genuinely open to it because, there was, a number of people who were just so upset that I don't like Hassan Piker. And it's like, okay, well, explain to me, that's what this show is all about. Give me an example of something that you really loved his take on, or, just, or even a paragraph of things why. And so someone wrote in, and I appreciate that. Charissa wrote in, and it says, "Hi, Corinne. I want to preface this by saying I haven't finished the episode yet, the Hassan Piker episode where I was talking about him, but wanted to email answering why I have been a fan of Hassan or what made me interested in his content. I don't have a specific example to share at this time, but for me, what has drawn me to Hassan has been his language around politics that have seemingly made it more digestible for me." And I love that. And this to me, okay, so this explanation right here, I get that. We've been talking about that on this show for years, that the left needs to make more digestible content. And so if Hassan Piker did that for you, great. That's one great reason that I understand why you would like him. Sure, charismatic nature and memes and shouting sarcasm brings a level of entertainment. And again, I get that. I know that we're not going to watch things if they're boring, especially when there are options that are not boring. So I understand that. But genuinely, I think I have learned more about what's going on in the world from him than I would have if I hadn't started watching. I go into his content knowing some of his biases, which I think is really responsible viewership on Charissa's end, because there's some things that I have a bias about, and I try to point them out. And just obviously, like, if you know me, you know some things that I have a bias about, or like certain individuals who I might have a vendetta against. And you kind of know that, and I try to playfully point it out. But, there's just some takes that, that I'm always going to have. And so it's good, I think, if you know that. I think that's a really responsible way to view, especially when you're taking content from an individual rather than like a network, right? And take what I can from his long form content, because he's streaming for hours and hours and hours. If Hassan gets younger men, I think this was a good point that she made too. If Hassan gets younger men into more leftist politics, then I'm not going to be super picky at this time about how and who is doing it. And that's a great point. And that also, is reinforcing maybe Hassan Piker's not for me. Maybe Hassan Piker is for the boys, and that's okay with me. And I'm okay with the boys having Hassan Piker, right? And so, again, just as like I always say, guys, we fucked is for the girls. The guys are welcome to listen, but it's for the girls. If Hassan Piker is for the guys and girls are welcome to listen, okay, I'm fine with that, because I do agree, again, with the writer that we desperately need to get men more into leftist politics, and female creators are getting killed on YouTube. Not literally. I mean, although I wouldn't put that past them. But to have leftist streamers specifically doing long form YouTube content, we really need that. So, and also like the fact that someone on the left was able to say the sentence, "I'm not going to be super picky at this time about how and who is doing it." I really love that, and I think that's something that everyone on the left has to constantly remind ourselves of, because we are too nitpicky. And that's why, like, besides like doing the one episode I did where I was just genuinely confused about him, it's not like I'm gonna like start attacking Hassan Piker, because that was a great point that the writer brought up, and I do agree with that we just overall need more big time streamers and YouTubers on the left. And so, that will be the one, commentary, unless he comes for me, which again, he's not going to. He's so much more famous than me. That's the one thing that I would I do stand by that. So that's a great point. I by no means feel like I support everything he says or even understand everything he discusses, but he has given me more than just the news and articles on my news feed. If I were more serious about politics, I would probably analyze what he says more carefully, which I love, the self-awareness, and find a creator that represents me better. But honestly, I just am not there right now. And anyway, I hope this is helpful in some way. Thanks for being a female commentator with some entertainment value. And again, I feel like it's okay. You say that you're not that serious about politics, but obviously you're watching this show and you're watching Hassan Piker. So to me, that's more than a lot of people are doing, and you're getting people with different viewpoints on the left. So I think that's great. Obviously, Hassan is more left than I am. I'm pretty left, but he's more left than I am, and that's cool. Thank you so much for writing in. You made a lot of great points, and a lot of these things help me understand. Yes, I can understand why those things would make you more interested in Hassan Piker. Like, you did a great job selling him. Again, like, I think even just the argument that like we need some, more leftist guys who are doing it. I think that's great. I think that's really great. All right. And then the second email that I'm going to read from the Wacko mailbag is regarding my mayoral run. I got a lot of messages over the past couple of weeks from people with very nice words and reflections on the campaign and how it made them feel or what it made them think about. And I tried to get back to everyone, even if it was just like a quick thank you. But they know that I if I saw it, I read it. Obviously, sometimes things go to other inboxes. So if I didn't see it, I didn't read it. But if I saw it, I read it. And I thank you for taking the time to write that out. I appreciate it. And this is just an example of one of those, but this is just the one that came to my Without a Country podcast email, so that's why I'm reading it here. Corinne, thank you for sharing your campaign journey with us. It was informative and eye-opening, and I know your transparency will help future candidates be more prepared for what they'll face. That's for sure. After learning how the NYC primary system works, I looked into how ours works. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. Sorry, long-running joke. I just have a bad track record with men from Ohio, specifically Columbus. And we have had the same mayor since January 1st, 2016. He is well established in Columbus politics, winning the last mayoral election with 63% of the vote. He served on the Board of Education and City Council before that. So he has been in Columbus Democratic politics since 2001. In our mayoral primary, all candidates are listed on the same ballot, regardless of political affiliation. The two candidates with the most votes move to the general election ballot. In the last election, 2023, 2 Democrats were on the ballot. And so I love that. So even if it just like made you look into a little bit more what's happening in your race, who's in charge, how long they've been in charge, are they doing a good job, who are they in cahoots with? And this reminds me of my friend Travis Irvine, who's the independent film director. He's done a couple documentaries. And he put this really cool movie out because he also ran for mayor many years ago in Ohio, in a small town in Ohio. But he, I think it's like close to Columbus based on what I know, because I know he's a stand-up comedian as well. And it's called American Mayor. It's a 39-minute documentary short that he put out in 2009. When I was running for mayor, I remembered, I was like going through online, and I remembered that he had run for mayor. And then I went to his Instagram and I was like, oh my God, he made a documentary about it. So I rented the documentary. You can buy it for like $2 or $3 online if you're interested. And he was very young when he did it, in his like early 20s. And I watched it, and then I reached out to him because we hadn't talked in a couple of years. He lives on the West Coast and does he like works on like Last Podcast on the Left and stuff. And he, we were just kind of talking shop because obviously like running for mayor when you have no political background is a very unique experience. So we've been chatting back and forth, but he made this documentary to encourage more people to run for office. So we definitely have this same kind of scrappy attitude towards taking matters into your own hands. And I just absolutely love Travis Irvine. I always have. And so if you're interested, again, it's a smaller race, and it's I don't know, it's just really interesting. But he was talking to me a lot about Ohio and how a lot of interesting things politically happen in Ohio, and how it's kind of training, it's testing grounds for how things will break down nationally. So I don't know, maybe we'll do something together in the future. But if you're interested, I think it's definitely worth like the $2 or $3, and just like a very interesting documentary. And it reminds me a lot of stuff that I would do in my neighborhood with my friends and my neighbors on like summer break. We would always make some kind of an interesting documentary short. I remember I made a documentary short for my what was it called? For my humanities class, I think it was called. And I did a documentary of my hometown that I handed in on VHS. And it was called Union, a documentary. And it's not online anywhere. It literally exists on one singular VHS in my house. And I should probably get it transferred to something else, and maybe I could share it with you. But like, it just reminded me, it's a certain type of person who is always doing certain types of things. And I guess I'm trying to encourage you with the kind of content that I make to also be that kind of person, right? Not to be me or to be Travis, but to be someone who really like does your own thing. Because that's who Travis is, and that's why I've always liked it. And there's very few people like that. But he wanted to run for mayor, and he did it. And he made a documentary about it. He didn't wait for someone to make a documentary about it. He put out the documentary himself. And he's done a lot of he's done feature films that I've lent my voice to. And he's just a really interesting person. And I think too often the big names that we know are not the people doing the most interesting things. And I wish I could change that. But I hope that people like him will kind of be an inspiration to you guys. And, just like do the thing that you want to do, and don't worry so much about clicks or views or likes. And I think you'll just feel more fulfilled in your life. Because as hard as this process was, at the end of the day, I did go, damn, Corinne, you ran for mayor of New York City. And like, you really ran, and you had a team, and you fundraised. And that was pretty fucking cool of you. So no one can take that away from me. The letter goes on. Anyways, I wanted to say that you helped restore my faith in politics. I'm a Democrat, but I've become increasingly frustrated with the lack of nuance around every single issue. We expect candidates and elected officials to know everything about everything and have strong stances on every issue. This is obviously impossible, and I think it leads to candidates who have to lie to their constituents in order to stay afloat. And this kind of goes back to what the previous writer was saying about how, you know, I'm not going to nitpick everything Hassan Piker says because we kind of just need to move forward. And I like that. And this writer echoes that in their own way. In addition, there are incredibly few problems where there is an absolute right answer and an absolute wrong answer. More and more, I want to know how my elected officials think through the problems that come across their desk. What morals and values are present when they make decisions? What sources are they using and what biases do they hold? What opinions do they hold in the highest and lowest regard? I've heard politicians tell me their stances on every single issue, but I want to know that they dug deep to come to their conclusions. You were a candidate that cemented that belief for me. If you were mayor, I would absolutely know that your decisions were well thought out. And that sentence meant a lot to me, so thank you. And it's true. I probably would obsess over them to a point where, you know, I would make my life very unpleasant. But you can always count on a Libra to really think things through. But I would not say Libra if I was, you know, in office, because then people would be like, there's a witch. You've shown us what it looks like to consider every side and grapple with beliefs and opinions that go against your own. You've talked us through your thought process as you formed your opinions. God, and that was the part I was most excited about being mayor. I was going to have like a weekly meeting where I was going to on Zoom or live stream talk to everyone in New York City so everyone always knew what was going on if they so chose to know what was going on. You've been willing to say you don't have enough information to make an informed decision, and you've shown us that it is okay to not know something. Even when I would strongly disagree with the decision you made, I would not be able to say that you didn't put the work in to understand the choice. You've given us a window into how you think about things, so I know that you gave that decision the time and weight it deserves. I appreciate Without a Country, and I appreciate how your candidacy has pushed me to hold my elected officials more accountable. It isn't enough to hear that their stance on abortion or education or the environment matches mine. We need to push candidates to share how they think about an issue, not just what they think about an issue, which I think is really, I really love that point. I really love that. And I think and it says with gratitude, Ashley. So Ashley, I think you put that beautifully and so succinctly. We need to push candidates to share how they think about an issue, not just what they think about an issue. And that's really great. And there's so much more nuance in it when we learn how a candidate thinks. And the alarming thing for me is that when you're running for mayor and being on stages with these people, what I found concerning is that you really weren't able to properly figure out how they think, because even the candidates that I liked were just repeating the same points. I would hear them continuously repeat points. So you know that they had the answer to the question before it was asked. And listen, I know it was like kind of rookie, I don't want to say mistake of me, but it was a little rookie-ish of me to maybe be answering the actual questions in real time. But, I was, because I didn't want to be a candidate who wasn't answering the question, even though that's like kind of what you're told to do. Again, it's not like strategically, it's not the move if you just want to win. But if you want to change how conversations around politics are had, I think it's the right route. And I also think like if I start actually answering the questions, or you as a candidate in your city where you live start actually answering the questions, I think it will eventually force other candidates to have to actually answer the questions. Because people in these audiences, if they show up to forums or whatever, they are actually listening. They're actively listening, So yeah. Thank you for writing that message. I think a lot of great I think I love what you kind of took away from the campaign, and that makes me really happy. So thank you so much for writing in. And the one thing I will say, I do have a little bit more empathy in certain points for candidates at this point, because you do need to hold elected officials accountable, but don't be so combative with them that they are kind of in a lose-lose situation, which I think is ultimately where many people get in politics, right? I think kind of what you're saying is like, we want to be electing people who, even if they don't make the decision that we agree with, we know they put thought into it, and we know that, their ethics are aligned with our political views in general. And then you have to kind of like let them go a little bit. Not that they're making decisions rogue, but that we can't, that we can trust that they had perhaps conversations that we weren't privy to that led them to that decision. What I will say is I think it's valid that we ask for more transparency in people's thought process. That's what I think would be helpful, right? Not that we always get the outcome that we wanted, but that we at least understand how and why the politician got there. And I think, it's very hard if the reason was for financial gain for a private company. It'll be very hard to talk your way out of that. But perhaps the way that the politician got to the outcome they got to was because they knew about a law we didn't know about, or they knew about this statute, or they knew about historically some kind of a precedent, right? And that's the kind of information that I think you should ask for. So rather than fighting them on the outcome, maybe we ask for more transparency in the route that they took to get there. And that's how we can see if people are doing what we hired them to do. Because as I said to one of my advisors in our last kitchen cabinet meeting, I was like, the part that really bothered me about running for mayor is at no point did I really feel like I was helping people, right? I felt like I was just talking about me. And he goes, well, you're not helping people yet. This is basically just the longest job interview you'll ever have. That's what running for office is. It's the longest job interview you'll ever have. And I was like, obviously, you're right. I just never really thought of it in like that framework before. But he was right when he said that. And, you could look at it, for me personally, for my campaign, I guess I could look at it as like I'm, helping to expose corruption and to hopefully, make other people motivated to want to run for local office. But if you're someone with a political background, like what help are you offering? And again, I do think it is still possible to help people along the way. Like in an ideal world, my candidacy, if it was like longer and I had more money, would be kind of, I would show New York City micro versions of my long-term plans, right? So I would see what kind of micro programs I could start implementing from my platform with the money we had. Again, I wasn't able to do any of this because we just, we didn't have the money to start implementing programs. But I think that's an idea that would be good. Again, Kat Abu-Ghazaleh, I'm still following her. Illinois Congress run very closely. She's doing a lot of kind of like food drive stuffs and everything, which I love. But for me, and mayor is more specific to the municipality, but I would do things like more specific to the communities that I was trying to serve. But I think, using campaign money to do that is great. And I'm so excited for her and just excited that she's getting traction. All right, going into some local bullshit, just because we are so close to the primary at this point. And I really do want to continue working to stop Andrew Cuomo from getting elected. Desperately hoping for an October surprise in May to get anyone else in the lead. But this is from the New York Post. It's an op-ed. Andrew Cuomo's pandering to the vile teachers union sets a record for shamelessness. And I know those of you at home not familiar with New York City politics might be gasping, oh my God, you're talking shit about teachers, New York Post. It's kind of like well known that the teachers union in New York City is pretty corrupt, as is like everything. And so people are constantly, kind of fighting with them. And I would have been fighting with them too, right? Because my platform was trying to pay certain teachers more to work at underperforming schools. And the teachers union would have fought me hard on that. When in reality, I just don't really think there's an argument to be had. Harder jobs deserve more pay. Stop arguing with me. Again, my mom's a teacher, even a public school teacher. Even in a state packed with shameless politicians, ex-governor Andrew Cuomo has long stood out, but his gyrations in wooing the United Federation of Teachers as he runs for mayor are still a marvel to behold. To be clear, we've long had the impression that Cuomo privately despises New York's teachers' unions, whether on personal grounds or conceivably the principled objections we share. It's one of his most attractive qualities. And again, New York Post, a little bit conservative, or a lot bit. And he took on all the state's teachers' unions early in his first term as governor, first by championing charter schools against an assault by then Mayor Bill de Blasio, and then by pushing for a rigorous-sounding statewide public school teacher evaluation process, a drive for which he declared himself the students' lobbyist. And again, never want to attack teachers. That being said, tenure tends to be a problem sometimes for teachers, and the union is always going to go hard for tenured teachers. But just as much as there are a lot of amazing teachers who are overworked and underpaid, and I have had the experience with many teachers like that, we've all also had a teacher who is tenured and is phoning it in or doing just crazy shit. I had a tenured teacher again at Union High School, public school, who would fucking throw like staplers at kids, and like we would all be like, what are you doing? But because he was tenured, like nothing would happen. He would have these these rageful outbursts, and he was a fucking lunatic teaching us chemistry. But because this guy was tenured, there was like nothing we could do about it. I think he ended up having a heart attack during class one time and then came back. Not my class, but someone else's class. And I can see why. He obviously needed therapy. The unions hate charters, but saw the evaluations as an existential threat. Since the point of them was to get incompetent teachers fired, they fought back and beat him soundly. But now the UFT could derail his comeback run, so Cuomo's desperate to jump even if he thinks the union might have said frog. At a cozy sit-down with UFT boss Michael Mulgrew and union activists last week, the ex-governor attacked his own past support for teacher evaluations and disowned the money-saving Tier 6 public pension reforms he pushed through as governor, which is really weird because all teachers have some kind of evaluations. I mean, any teachers that I've been taught by, and doesn't that make you ask yourself, why would a union be fighting so hard against teacher evaluations if students thriving was everyone's shared goal? It doesn't make sense. He's not yet trash-talking charters, but he's getting closer. Notably, the 25-point education plan he dropped Monday could have been ghostwritten by a UFT stalwart or ChatGPT. It even buries his support for mayoral control of the city schools, which the union mislikes, at point number 15, just above his remaining support of charters at number 16, which it buried under the heading Support Diverse High-Impact School Models. Everything in the plan was either a boilerplate policy retreat or an item off the UFT's wish list. It had not a mention of turning around failing schools, raising math and reading scores, or weeding out incompetent educators. Nothing about restoring academic rigor, expanding gifted and talented programs, or addressing special education services. Fine, Andrew Cuomo is infamous for breaking his promises when they no longer suit his immediate needs. His sellout to the union now doesn't mean he wouldn't someday defy the union, perhaps even to the benefit of city school children. But that doesn't make his transformation from students' lobbyist to UFT lapdog any less pathetic. And this is really interesting because, as you've heard me talk about, the mayor of New York City does have pretty much full control over the New York City's public school system. So it's it really should be at the top of their list, especially when numbers are what they are for New York City public schools right now. But it's just really upsetting to me that the shared goal of I understand the teachers union is there to protect teachers, but I do think that a close number two should be making sure that children, no matter where they start in life, get the tools to catch up to other kids who perhaps have more money or access to more privilege. And that sucks. And I don't love that. And again, it's not just the teachers union that's corrupt. It's so many of these unions are corrupt, and it bummed me out the whole freaking time. Going off of that, Andrew Cuomo is also, in trouble with the DOJ. I did want to bring that into view. Okay, so just to make it short, the Justice Department is investigating Cuomo over his pandemic testimony. The Justice Department has opened a criminal investigation into former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo after congressional Republicans recommended that he be charged with lying over his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, a person familiar with the matter said Tuesday. The investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington follows a referral from Representative James Comer, Republican chairman of the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, over statements Cuomo made to lawmakers investigating his management of the pandemic when the virus was spreading through nursing homes, the person said. The person was not authorized to discuss the investigation publicly and spoke on the condition of anonymity. The investigation plunges the Justice Department yet again into New York politics as Cuomo runs for the New York City mayor. It comes just months after federal prosecutors abandoned a corruption case against New York Mayor Eric Adams, who is running for a second term. They cited a desire to free Adams up to cooperate with the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. A spokesperson for Cuomo said Tuesday that the former governor was never informed of any such investigation. So why would someone leak it now? Rich Azzopardi said in an email. The answer is obvious. This is lawfare and election interference, plain and simple, something President Trump and his top Department of Justice officials say they are against. Azzopardi added, Governor Cuomo testified truthfully to the best of his recollection about events from 4 years earlier, and he offered to address any follow-up questions from the subcommittee. But from the beginning, this was all transparently political. The investigation was first reported Tuesday by the New York Times. The Justice Department declined Tuesday to comment. Spokespeople for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington didn't immediately respond to messages seeking comment. The inquiry also subjects the department to claims that it is pursuing retribution against political adversaries. The new leader of the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, Jeanine Pirro, ran unsuccessfully against Cuomo for New York Attorney General in 2006 and has been a harsh critic in the years since, publicly accusing him of a cover-up of nursing home deaths. The Justice Department separately has launched a mortgage fraud investigation into New York Attorney General Letitia James, who sued Trump for civil fraud. The investigation into Cuomo revisits a years-old politically divisive question over then-governor's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic in nursing homes. Republicans have zeroed in on a controversial directive his administration issued in March 2020 that initially barred nursing homes from refusing to accept patients just because they had COVID-19. More than 9,000 recovering coronavirus patients were released from hospitals into nursing homes under the directive, which was rescinded amid speculation that it had accelerated outbreaks. Comer referred Cuomo to the Justice Department for possible criminal prosecution last month, alleging that he made false statements to lawmakers during a hearing last year focused on his decision-making. Cuomo adamantly defended himself during the hearing, blaming the first Trump administration for failing to provide enough testing and personal protective equipment in the early days of the pandemic. These are all diversions to blame New York and other states for the culpability of the federal response, which was malpractice, Cuomo said. But Comer asserted that Cuomo had lied during the hearing. He cited what he said was evidence of Cuomo's direct involvement in a state report that the congressman said lowballed nursing home fatalities. And he definitely did lie about this. Everyone knows this in New York. The thing is, what I think is happening here is that the Trump administration is trying to make Cuomo its bitch the same way they did to Eric Adams, right? Because I don't think they actually want anything to happen to Andrew Cuomo. He's the front runner. The second person, very, very far behind Andrew Cuomo right now, is Zoran Mamdani, who is a socialist. Trump doesn't want Zoran winning the election for mayor of New York City. That's obvious. But what I think he's doing is he's testing the waters. He's saying, okay, Cuomo, you blamed my administration previously for the way we handled COVID. We have so much dirt on you. We're going to fucking put you between a rock and a hard place and see what you do. And I know that Trump, has also probably talked to Cuomo already. But he's doing this. He's testing him. He's saying, okay, are you going to be my bitch when push comes to shove, or are you not going to be my bitch? And I think Cuomo's definitely going to be Trump's bitch, and he's going to give in. And so he's testing him by, he's saying, put him under, trial, whatever. Look into him, and then they'll talk privately. And I think Cuomo is going to say uncle and then become Trump's bitch. And, we're going to have a nightmare here in New York City. Trump wants to have a clear pathway into New York City. And he knows that he can do that by playing chicken with Andrew Cuomo. He knows he can do that. He's like, okay, you're evil, I'm evil. But when push comes to shove, who can be more evil? And obviously Trump's going to win that because he's the fucking president. So that's what I think is going on here. And honestly, I think it's a brilliant strategic play by the Trump administration. So good job on you. You played dirty, but sometimes you have good ideas. And last thing I'll say about the mayoral race, if you are a registered Democrat in New York City, or you intend on voting in the mayoral race in general when it comes to November, the city and the Gothamists teamed up for this really cool quiz, because I literally Googled how should I know who to vote for mayor, and I wanted to see what came up. And, obviously some articles came up, but projects.thecity.nyc/meet your mayor 2025 election quiz candidates came up, and the link will be in the description of this podcast. But you can do you could also Google meet your mayor 2025 Gothamist quiz, and I think it will probably come up there. And it's really cool. And you can take the quiz, and it's based on, how you feel about certain issues, and it gives you candidates that align with your thoughts. And, it also reminds you to rank all 5 of the choices that you get if you are voting in the Democratic primary. And you can take the quiz as if you're voting in the primary, or if you're voting in the election in November, the general election. And so I did it as if I'm voting in the primary, because I will be voting in the primary. I do want to point out that it does not feature, this was updated May 21st, 2025, but it leaves out 2 people who rightly earned their spot on the Democratic ballot, one being Paperboy Prince, who, is, the candidate I talk about every, who I've talked about it for a couple weeks, who really is a performance artist, but by trade. I'm not saying that to be smug. He's actually just a performance artist and doesn't have a real serious platform. And so I can understand why they wouldn't include him, because he does kind of run every year, makes a bit of a joke about it. But there is another candidate who I met throughout this process named Dr. Selma Bartholomew, who is a real candidate. And I think she might have done, ran with the same party who called themselves the Clown Party, whose whole business it is to get kind of non-political candidates on the ballot, and they are successful, but again, no one takes them seriously, which is the problem. So I'm pretty sure that Dr. Selma Bartholomew is part of that, but she is also left out, and she is a serious candidate, meaning that she actually has a platform. She's done mayoral forums with me, and she's an interesting and intelligent woman. So I'm just putting that out there, that she was left off of this. And even though I'm no longer in the race, I want to advocate for people who rightly earned their place on the ballot, who should be there, who are being left out. But I took the quiz, and it's really interesting, and I got a 68% match with Jessica Ramos was my number 1 pick. And that doesn't surprise me. Throughout this process, I've been constantly really have loved Jessica Ramos's policy. I think she is, when you talk about having long conversations about policy or about really knowing your shit, Jessica Ramos puts all the other candidates to shame, if we're just going on who knows your shit. But from the beginning, I said this, she doesn't have star power. I said this in endorsement meetings. I said this in times when it was not appropriate, because I knew it was going to fuck her over. And that's why she's polling at 2%. This is a really, really qualified candidate. And she should not be polling at 2%. She has great ideas, has a really good understanding of policy, polling at 2%. She just doesn't have star power. And I'm sure misogyny plays into it a little bit as well. And then after that, my second match, disgustingly, was 56% with Scott Stringer, which repulses me because I would never vote for him because of his track record of treatment of women, allegedly. And then Brad Lander, I matched 52% with. He's fine. And then Michael Blake, who I really like, who doesn't get talked about a lot, 44%. And then it was also, I think it was also like 44 or 42% with Zelnor Myri and Zoran Mamdani. So again, and Adrienne Adams, I think, was somewhere in there, like 43%. She was my fifth, actually. So again, a lot of people are just kind of like, back Zoran. It's like, well, obviously, based on the quiz, like there's some things that Zoran is really extreme about, like just letting people evade fares that I just simply don't agree with. I don't think people should be fucking tackled or anything like that. That's crazy. But when we're talking about a city that desperately needs more money, I don't think this is the time to say, yes, evade fares and then also make everything free. Like, again, you're running a business here when you're mayor and you need to make smart choices. And it's not just saying people can evade fares is just like not the way. Like that's too left for me. I'm sorry. But again, also, I'm not like from the Cuomo team where I think I'm going to put several thousand more police officers on the streets and have them being attacking people in predominantly black neighborhoods and handcuffing them because they jumped a turnstile. That's fucking crazy. Yes, Mike, your hand is raised.
Yeah, but what is the other alternative?
Put cops in front of the turnstiles. No one's tried it. That was my platform. Stop it right there. They wait behind them to when the problem. This is the problem with cops. In short, cops do not stop crimes from happening. They're there to be reactive. What if we put cops in a place where they could stop crimes before they happen? And so then we don't have to escalate to violence. We don't have to do all these things. It just doesn't happen. If a cop is standing right there, a lot less likely that you're going to jump the turnstile.
Yeah, but aren't the majority of the issues at a train station happening within the station? So it's like now we're
specifically talking about fare evasion.
I understand, but
so if you have
what's the other alternative to add that more cops?
No, you just have the two cops who are texting each other behind the turnstile, have one in front and have one actually being alert down on the platform. I was never going to add more cops, but I also wasn't going to take away them. I was just going to be like, can you do your job?
Do your job.
Can you do your job? We're going to support you. That was my thing. I was like, we're going to support you. We're talking about screening teachers and doing that. We're going to keep an eye on what you're doing. You're going to get fired if you're not doing your job. But if you are, you're actually going to get a raise and you're going to get mental health support. Come on.
The Bill Belichick mayor. Nobody's tried this. The do your job mayor.
It's not that hard. And also, like, I feel like as someone who actually has a track record that you can see of working hard, it's not crazy for me to tell people to do your job because I've been doing my job. But then as mayor, you have to continually do your job and like not be getting your eyebrows waxed like Eric Adams. Guys, I mean, I haven't even gotten a facial, and I mean, I've aged 15 years during this. All right, let's move on. I'm just like very into this race still, so I don't want to like stop talking about it just because I'm no longer involved. Like that's not at all what I'm going for. And again, I had a call with Dream, and I'm going to be supporting them more. Don't rank Evil Andrew for mayor. Really excited about that collab. Let's quickly go into Adriana Smith. We didn't talk about this last week, but it was a big story, and it is a big story, and it's crazy. Georgia Republicans are playing dumb about Adriana Smith. Don't believe them. This is from Slate.com. Adriana Smith is a brain dead woman who is being kept alive on life support because she had a 9-week pregnancy in her belly when she was deemed brain dead. And this is wild stuff. And so if you don't know, now you know. The state of Georgia wants us to believe that Adriana Smith's case is a mystery. Smith, a 30-year-old black woman who lost brain function after a pregnancy complication. And so not only brain dead because of the pregnancy, is being kept on a ventilator because she is pregnant. Her family members haven't decided whether they would want life support turned off, but resent that they don't even have a choice. Her case and the bad publicity it has attracted has set off a cascade of denials from Georgia Republicans. The anti-abortion group that championed the state's heartbeat ban, the Faith and Freedom Coalition, argues that Georgia's 6-week abortion abortion ban doesn't apply to Smith. The state's attorney general likewise issued a press release last week arguing that nothing in Georgia's law requires medical professionals to keep a woman on life support after brain death. How? Because removing Smith from life support would not count as an action with the purpose to terminate a pregnancy. But Republicans in Georgia aren't addressing the rest of the state's law, which is much more than an abortion ban, and how it affects this case and other state residents. Smith's case is a predictable result of a state that has embraced not just bans on reproductive rights, but the personhood of a fetus. While many states recognize fetal rights in various contexts, Georgia's Life Act was unique. At the time it passed, so-called heartbeat bans were all the rage in red states. These laws criminalized abortion at 6 weeks. Georgia went a step much further, defining the term natural person to mean any human being, including an unborn child. The state even spelled out changes to the laws governing the collection of child support and census measurements. It's true that Georgia lawmakers probably weren't thinking of women like Adriana Smith when they passed their abortion ban. Smith, a nurse and mother, was pregnant with her second child when she began experiencing severe headaches. It turned out that she had severe blood clots in her brain that eventually left her brain dead. Emory Healthcare, her provider, is keeping her on life support because of her pregnancy, and it's fears that they might run afoul of the natural person law, which is so crazy, especially when we know that healthcare companies all the time are denying people life-saving procedures, yet they're spending all this money to keep a brain-dead woman on life support when that fetus is only at 9 weeks. She got a lot more weeks to go. It is unclear whether Smith's child will ever be born or would survive long thereafter. Smith's family is fighting for the right to decide whether she should be kept on life support. They are also raising money, given that they bear the costs of raising Smith's son if he survives. And I mean, let's pay for therapy in advance. It is unclear whether Smith has insurance or who is paying for the costs associated with her hospitalization, but it is likely her family. So that's a fucking crazy article. Oh, and then it goes on. It says the rest of this article is for Slate subscribers. Okay, honestly, we get the story. Fuck you, Slate. Give me the fucking news. And then a kind of a sister story to this is something that's happening in Texas that people are not talking about a lot. I follow Jessica Valenti, who does a lot of, she does abortion every day. I think that it actually might even be her handle. I want to give it to you because if you're interested specifically in reproductive rights, you should be following her. She's like your best update. So daily update. She abortion every day, or you can follow at Jessica Valenti. And it is, her promise that she covers abortion news every single day, reproductive rights in general. So you should definitely follow her because I had to go to ksat.com to even find this story that I initially learned about from Jessica Valenti. But it says charge dismissed against woman accused of attempting to flush fetus due to insufficient evidence, records show. Because I think they were worried, because this woman was arrested and jailed, I believe, initially for a miscarriage. But then what happened was she had this miscarriage in the bathroom of a Whataburger, which is a fast food chain in Texas. And then she was in the bathroom for a long time. And I think they eventually called the authorities. Obviously, she got scared and she tried to flush the fetal material down the toilet, which is something that people often do. She got caught. I guess they're pulling it out of the toilet, whatever. She's a Black woman, which I do think is important to call out. Again, Adriana Smith, also a Black woman. These, Black women are treated so poorly when they have babies, and then also when something goes wrong in the pregnancy, and just in general in the medical community. And we need to keep talking about this. This story is about Mallory Patrice Straight, 33. And she was charged with abuse of corpse without legal authority after she remained in the restaurant's bathroom for hours until the Bexar County deputies arrived and found human-like material in the restroom. The records indicate Straight and the child, Straight and the fetal material were taken to a local hospital where the child was pronounced dead, an arrest affidavit said. I mean, dead. She had a... Yeah, what are you talking about? This is so crazy, the language they're using. A motion to dismiss Straight's charge on May 14th by Bexar County District Attorney's Office was accepted by a district court judge, court documents showed. According to the Bexar County Medical Examiner's Office, the fetus died in utero by intrauterine fetal demise. So she had a miscarriage. But it's very important. This is what's going on. This is a Black woman, and just honestly, by the picture, by her mugshot, and the fact that she had this happen in a Whataburger bathroom. It doesn't take a genius to know. Just things aren't going well for her right now, and so I think this is like these stories that are less glamorous, perhaps, are not covered as widely, because I think sometimes the left is worried about the optics of such a story. But that's exactly why I wanted to present this story to you. Because is it a great sell for reproductive rights that someone's miscarrying in a Whataburger bathroom? No, but also it could be. I think it really speaks to so many things that are happening in America, that women don't have proper education about her bodies. Like, she was probably scared, maybe didn't know what was happening. And then this added police state that we're living in when it comes to reproductive rights. People fear the law, and so they have to decide, do I want to get medical attention and risk getting arrested, or do I want to fucking have a miscarriage in this fast food restaurant bathroom? Like, this is a really, really, really sad state of affairs that we're in right now. And no matter what's going on in your life, or no matter if you have health insurance or if you don't have health insurance, you shouldn't be having to do this. And you shouldn't be locking yourself in a Whataburger bathroom because you're scared and you don't know what's going on and you're scared that you're going to get arrested and then ending up getting arrested. This is a really sad story. This should not be happening anywhere, and certainly not in a country that is so proud to be America. It should not be happening. We should be actually, I understand that people aren't talking about this as much because the optics don't look great, but I disagree. I think we should be talking about this everywhere, because this is a fucked up picture of what is going on in these states with these really severe, reproductive laws going on. It's fucked up. It's fucked up. And just because someone isn't the perfect, victim, isn't giving you the perfect glamorous mugshot that you wanted, we still got to be talking about these people. These are people, and these are people who need our help. Need our help as a society, All right. Obviously, big news of the week, I would say main story of the week, is that Joe Biden has prostate cancer. And, of course, that set off a whole thing because everyone's like, was he hiding it? Blah, blah, blah. So Joe Biden announced this week that he had stage 4 prostate cancer. What is interesting is he announced this like the day before Jake Tapper's book, Original Sin, that is basically a takedown of Joe Biden and the Biden family, was coming out. I follow this, I think Felicity Merriman is her name. She does like a lot of American Girl content, but like it's political. So Felicity Merriman, it's Felicity _Merriman, and she makes a lot of like interesting memes about politics using dolls, and specifically a lot of times American Girl dolls, but sometimes she does stuff herself. And I think it was her who pointed out that it was like really interesting timing I think it was her. I don't want to credit her if not, but she's a great follow anyway. I think it was her who pointed out that it was such interesting timing of Joe Biden to announce that he had cancer the day before this Original Sin Jake Tapper book was going to come out, because it was like petty as fuck. And, like I say, I condoned Joe Biden's kind of fuck you attitude at the end of his candidacy. But this is definitely seemingly a big fuck you to Jake Tapper. And I thought it was pretty funny. And I do appreciate a petty bitch. Joe Biden and Cardi B, I think, have more in common than one would think. But this ABC article says new book Original Sin alleges Joe Biden hid son Beau's cancer diagnosis. So they're trying to make the point also, now with this, perhaps that he has he knows how to hide cancer because he's done it before. So in a copy of Original Sin, President Biden's decline, its cover-up, and his disastrous choice to run again, obtained by ABC News, authors and journalists Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson allege that former President Joe Biden hid information about the cancer diagnosis of his late son, Beau Biden, who was an elected official at the time. Not only did the authors claim that this misled the public about Beau Biden's mental fitness, they also say this demonstrates the Biden's capacity for denial and the lengths they would go to avoid transparency about health issues. Released Tuesday, this new detail comes just days after Joe Biden's aggressive prostate cancer was announced. Joe Biden's cancer diagnosis was announced Sunday via statement from his office. According to the statement, he was seen by medical professionals last week for a new finding of a prostate nodule after experiencing increasing urinary symptoms, and on Friday he was diagnosed. Original Sin claims that Joe Biden and Beau Biden falsely touted Beau's clean bill of health, intentionally choosing to say nothing despite being aware of his glioblastoma diagnosis and how advanced it was. In the summer of 2013, Beau Biden collapsed during a family vacation and underwent brain surgery to remove a tumor. Beau's tumor was definitely glioblastoma stage, what is that, 4? Biden later wrote about the post-operative findings, according to the book. The authors say Joe Biden's other son, Hunter Biden, called it a death sentence. Beau Biden's neurologist told the public that doctors had removed a small lesion from his brain, but it was in fact a tumor slightly larger than a golf ball. Biden later revealed, according to the book. The book also alleges that Beau remained in office as Delaware's Attorney General, a position he held from 2007 to 2015, despite displaying signs of deterioration, such as speech difficulties and secretly undergoing treatments around the world where he checked in under an alias. In a statement released Tuesday, a Biden spokesman said there is nothing in this book that shows Joe Biden failed to do his job, as the authors have alleged, nor did they prove their allegation that there was a cover-up or conspiracy. Nowhere do they show that our national security was threatened or where the president wasn't otherwise engaged in the important matters of the presidency, a Biden spokesperson said in a statement to ABC News reacting to the publication of Original Sin. In fact, Joe Biden was an effective president who led our country with empathy and skill, the statement added. The authors say Beau Biden's wife, Hallie, publicly questioned this apparent cover-up, allegedly telling others that she didn't understand why they had to keep his illness a secret. ABC News is attempting to reach Hallie Biden for comment. The book goes on to claim that Beau Biden's death and the emotional toll it had on the then vice president demonstrated the first signs he was deteriorating in 2015, citing a senior White House official that described Joe Biden's brain as seeming to dissolve like someone poured hot water immediately after Beau's death. Original Sin has additional allegations against Biden and his mental fitness during his presidency, including details about his physical and mental impairments and alleged efforts to cover those impairments up. In an appearance on ABC's The View earlier this month, both Biden and former First Lady Dr. Jill Biden pushed back against the slate of new books from reporters, claiming that Biden was dealing with cognitive decline at the end of his presidency. They are wrong, he said. There's nothing to sustain that. And so that's a little bit about the book. And then it's interesting because a lot of people have kind of said, fuck you to Jake Tapper, because they're like, well, if you knew all this, for so long that you were able to write a book that you would then monetize, you're a scumbag too, because you should have been telling this to the public to help the party, right? And so this is from Fox News. Tapper admits feeling humility about past Biden coverage as liberals disparage new book. Jon Stewart slammed Tapper and CNN for selling news they should have told you was news a year ago for free. CNN host Jake Tapper has acknowledged humility about his past coverage of Joe Biden, although that hasn't stopped criticism of his and Axios reporter Alex Thompson's new book about the cover-up of the former president's decline while in office. And if you're going to write a book like this where you're throwing a lot of stones and you're casting stones and you're pointing fingers, you really got to have a clean slate yourself. So this is interesting because they're always going to try and call you out on the thing that you're calling out other people on, right? Famous last words. I think some of the criticism is fair, to be honest, Tapper told CNN last week as he was pressed on the criticisms of himself in the book. Of me, certainly. I'm not going to speak for anybody else. But knowing then what I know now, I look back at my coverage during the Biden years, and I did cover some of these issues, but not enough. I look back on it with humility. Tapper and Thompson's new book, Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again, was released on Tuesday. Tapper has admitted to insufficiently reporting on Biden's health concerns as his past coverage of the administration has been criticized by conservatives. And so, look, she was right and I was wrong, Tapper told NPR of a 2020 back and forth he had with Laura Trump, who was President Donald Trump's campaign advisor at the time. And I look back at that exchange, and not just that, but my coverage in general, with humility. I did cover this. I can point to times where, I asked him this, or I asked him that, or I pointed this out to this person or whatever. Okay, that made no sense, that quote. But knowing what I know now, I barely scratched the surface. Very few people outside the conservative media world were doing so, he said Tuesday. But no one cares. Like, if you know things and you're not reporting them, you suck. In a separate interview on CBS, he said conservative media was, quote, all over this. Comedian Jon Stewart called out CNN on Monday for relentlessly promoting the book and slamming the network for advertising a book about news they should have told you was news a year ago for free. Don't news people have to tell you what they know when they find it out? Isn't that the difference between news and a secret, Stewart asked. You won't believe what we found out. No, that's why I'm watching breaking news in a week. You've prepared an entire smorgasbord based on what you thought would be a relatively uncomplicated story about mental decline. News has the countdown clock. They got the book's graphics. They got the CNN Happy Meal tie-in toys. But now doing the story seems almost disrespectful, Stewart said. Can CNN thread the needle? How do you pivot from excitedly promoting your anchor's book to somberly and respectfully promoting your anchor's book? Okay, also, I just got a really good idea on this. When they're saying like CNN Happy Meal tie-in toys, I know they're saying it as a joke, but like, wouldn't it be awesome if they released a series of McDonald's toys that were just like great people that you should look up to as a kid? And we included politicians, but we also, and like we can include them from all sides because they would become collector's items, right? And like, you get a Donald Trump or whatever, not saying that he should be included. But you can have like an AOC, and then you can have, athletes, and I don't know. I just think that would be like a cool toy. It would probably be too controversial though to be a toy, and then parents would start protesting and it would be a whole problem. But like, you could trade it in, right? You're like, trade this in if this goes against mom and dad's political views. I don't know. I think it would be cool to get people, I guess, interested in aspirational people younger, but I also don't want them to have the opportunity to be a kid and not worry about getting a job at 4. Radio host Charlemagne the God, Love you, Charlemagne. A liberal who repeatedly spoke out against Biden and concerns about his age on the campaign trail despite his disdain for Trump, said Tuesday that he was looking forward to reading the book but remained skeptical of Tapper. I'm looking forward to reading it because I want to see if people like Jake Tapper hold themselves and their networks like CNN accountable for how much they didn't report on, he said during his Breakfast Club show, because they're all complicit in not calling a thing in regards to President Biden. The View co-host Joey Behar slammed CNN on Tuesday for hawking the book and wondered when Tapper would write a book about Trump's decline. Co-host Sunny Hostin, I don't know who that is, also focused her criticism on Trump officials who made money on books about the administration after Trump's first term. Whoopi Goldberg wondered why the book was important now and questioned the over 200 sources the author spoke to, asking, if you're telling me that hundreds of people knew that he was not able to do his job, then where the hell was everybody? Let me tell you where everybody was. Everyone's a coward and everyone is afraid to speak out because they need to position themselves that if the person in their party who is running for president wins, that they will be in the president's good graces. That's what's happening. You have a lot of cowards representing you in politics, and that is the problem. That is the problem. People who are, and I understand to a certain extent that like everyone doesn't have the luxury of being able to get fired, right? That's a luxury that I had, right? I had the luxury of being able to like not be mayor or like not make the ballot and still be fine. And that's a luxury. And not everyone has that. But we need more bold people in politics who are not afraid to speak out, who are not more, when you're a public servant, unfortunately, you do have to be more concerned with the public than with yourself. But when you're not an elected official and you don't have to go, running, you don't have to run for office. Yeah, of course you're just going to end up being more concerned with your own job. And that's what's happening. Like elected officials, that's just who we see. There's so many people beyond that who are corrupt and cowardly and writing speeches and making decisions and creating policy. And all you're seeing is the face of it, who is the elected official. So, and behind these elected, if you think your elected officials are cowards, I mean, obviously the people behind them are also cowards. I mean, come on, just cowardly. And so you need people who are willing to get fired because that's how much they believe in doing the right thing. And just in life in general, you're going to come across very few of those people. And honestly, when you do, you're probably not going to like them, right? The kind of person who would do that, you're probably not going to get along with. That's not the person that you're going to want to have coffee with in the break room because they're probably going to be a loudmouth and annoying like me, right? So This is what happens. We just need to be making braver choices every day individually, and I think we will see that end up in our government. That's what I want everyone to be doing. Make bold choices, and I'm not talking about choices where you're doing dangerous things and not thinking them through, or putting yourself in physical or emotional danger. I'm not saying that, but be bold and don't be cowardly. And with the moves that you make, think if someone wrote a book about you, and there was a paragraph about you doing the thing that you're doing now, would you be proud of that paragraph? Would you want to show it to your children or your friends or a teacher you admired or your parents? Would you be proud of how this, the book of your life reads? And I think that if you think about it like that, you'll maybe be able to make bolder choices. MSNBC's Micah Brzezinski, a strong Biden supporter, pushed back on the authors over the notion of a cover-up while speaking to Tapper and Thompson on MSNBC's Morning Joe. The first question posed to Tapper and Thompson by Brzezinski was, is it fair to say that Joe Biden had a successful presidency, remarkable presidency, possibly even a historic presidency in his time in office? Brzezinski maintained that MSNBC Morning Show covered Biden and his re-election campaign in real time, and while she applauded Tapper and Thompson's reporting, questioned the contention of a cover-up. And one of the contentions you make is that that's sort of the media didn't do its part or did like way too late. And what's not in the book is the day after the debate. Joe very painfully, immediately says Biden should step out of the race. And it was really a big change for the direction of the show. I personally went on a very long plea for him to stay in the race, and I still stand by it, she said. Nobody agrees with me, but we debated this and we covered this. And my point is that we did this in real time. There is definitely new information in this book, great reporting, but I want to understand why you're using words like cover up, which insinuates a crime or something. Was there a crime committed? Because we're in an environment where we are covering an administration that is actually in office right now that is pushing the limits of the law in every way, Brzezinski added. Tapper said he and Thompson cover Trump critically on a daily basis. Brzezinski pushed back, saying, "You've given hours and hours to this book." Brzezinski and co-host John Scarborough then asked bluntly what the cover-up was. Thompson responded by asking if the pair were shocked by the former president's June debate performance, and they responded yes. "If there was not a cover-up, then you guys wouldn't have been shocked," Thompson said. Liberal influencer Harry Sisson praised Naomi Biden's criticisms of the book. Naomi, Hunter Biden's daughter and Joe Biden's granddaughter, issued a scathing rebuke, deeming it political fairy smut on social media. Quote, "Just read a copy of this silly book, and if anyone is curious for a review from someone who lived it firsthand, this book is political fairy smut for the permanent professional chattering class, the ones who rarely enter the arena but profit from the spectacle of those that do. Put simply, it amounts to a bunch of unoriginal, uninspired lies written by irresponsible, self-promoting journalists out to make a quick buck," Naomi Biden wrote. Conservative critics have taken aim at Tapper since the announcement of his book, alleging he was part of the cover-up and trying to rewrite history with his book. Journalist Mark Halperin has also called out Tapper, CNN, and specifically CNN media analyst Brian Stelter for promoting the book. Brian Stelter has been, over the course of the entire Biden presidency, one of the biggest critics of those on the right and those few people like me in the independent media who have tried to hold Joe Biden accountable. Halperin said he's accused us of, being propagandists, of celebrating cheap fakes and deep fakes. I don't understand someone whose job it is to hold the media accountable, to not hold not just to his own network, but every news organization in the country who now it's clear participated in a cover-up. Some because of threats, some because of a desire to help Joe Biden win, he added. Massive cover-up. Figures on the right have not been quick to forget past media dismissals of Biden's issues. Fox News contributor Joe Concha told Fox News Digital the timing of the book was the main reason why media is so distrusted these days. It's all about ego and money and self-importance, he said. Reach for a comment. A representative for the book pointed to Tapper's remarks on MSNBC on Wednesday that many of their sources with critical comments about Biden, including cabinet secretaries and high-ranking Democratic insiders, didn't feel comfortable speaking until after the 2024 election. Many of them expressed regret that they hadn't come forward until Election Day, he told Morning Joe. And I think it's not even just about coming forward maybe to the press. I think it's maybe about being able to be bolder with your bosses internally. I'm not saying like you come out to the press and and try to, topple the Democratic Party and hand, the Republicans a win. But I think what you want to put pressure on people internally and say, if you don't take this seriously, if you don't take Biden's mental health, health seriously, what we all see as this decline. And again, this is internal. I obviously don't work, in Washington, D.C., and on this show, I was giving Biden apparently a lot more credit that he was due. I don't actually know what his real decline was. I wasn't there. But if you're internal and you see a decline, you got to put pressure internally and not be afraid. Again, everyone's just afraid of getting, kicked out of the cool kids club, I suppose. All right. And then we got to wrap it up. It's super late.
Yes. Really want to know.
Yes.
I really want to know how much of that book is going to focus on the reaction after the debate when everyone was mouth agape at something that we all saw in front of us for 6 to 8 months before that and acted like we weren't seeing for some reason. And I want to know how much is put on the donor class having a meeting with Biden a week before that debate, and all of them in hushed circles talking about how this guy is not fit, how he had lost complete support. The money had dried up long before this debate, and this was a fait accompli.
Mm-hmm.
I really hope that that's covered and that's not swept under the rug, because that typically is.
Why? Because other famous people are involved?
Just that this whole thing is controlled by money and nobody wants to admit it. And they're acting like they did the right thing when they saw that, oh no, this is, can you believe that it's gotten this far and it's this bad? We have to act now heroically and bravely and not point to the fact that, no, this was a complete money play.
Well, and what I really like, Fox News loves to attack the media, right? But I actually like that they point out, like what you just said, everything's a money play, including media coverage of this. And that is the problem, and that was perhaps the most bitter pill I had to swallow during the mayoral campaign, was really seeing that. I don't know if it's always been this way, but certainly local political journalists really lack integrity, and it bothered me on a very deep level. And it is money-based. And again, when that journalism student told me that in journalism school they are taught to follow the money, I mean, I wish I had a picture of what my face must have looked like. And I'm so glad that she shared that with me. But, I almost want, if I had longer to sit, to stand with her and talk, I would have been like, and you never, especially young people who are in many ways so outspoken and willing to stand up for what is wrong and protest and do all these great things. You're sitting there in a journalism class and your journalism teacher tells you your job here is to follow the money. You're not going to raise your hand and say, the fuck? If I'm in that class, I certainly am, because I would say that's not why I got into this. Your job should be to follow the truth, to follow the story, not to follow the money. Are you out of your mind? Crazy that that's happening. If you're in journalism school right now, be interested to hear what you're learning. withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. Or if you teach journalism, or if you have a degree in journalism and you are using or not using it, you can certainly be anonymous. But I just thought that was fucking crazy. All right. God, I don't really want to end on a Gaza story, but I think we have to. It was just very interesting this week, because this number was released that, like, if Israel didn't give Gaza like the access to the aid, that 14,000 babies would die. I forgot what the what.
I mean, I'll save it for after this, but crazy breaking news.
Oh my God. No, you have to tell me now.
2 staff members of the Israeli embassy shot near the Holocaust Museum in D.C.
What?
Yeah.
What? Oh my God. Wait, let me go. Wow, guys, this is what happens when we do this show this late. Wait, Israeli...
Suspect is in custody, it says, according to The Guardian an hour ago.
Oh my God. Wait. This is fucking crazy. Okay. It's not even like up most places yet. So what is this? AL Monitor, the Middle East independent news source since 2012. Okay, that's the first place where I'm seeing this. 2 Israeli embassy staff shot dead outside Jewish museum in Washington. This is getting bad. Oh, and I can't read it because I'm not a subscriber. Where are you seeing this story?
So I just typed in Israeli embassy shooting into Google, and CNN, The Guardian, AP News, New York Times, and Times of Israel all have articles on it.
Oh, here, I did it in a different way. Okay, I typed it in with embassy instead of Holocaust Museum. All right. Well, this actually is good timing for this, because this will actually align with what we're talking about. So great job, Mike. But let's go to CNN, because they do really good live updates usually, and we haven't featured them yet today. So let's see. The shooting occurred on the same night as young diplomats' reception. The fatal shooting near the Capitol Jewish Museum on Wednesday occurred on the same night as the American Jewish Committee was holding an event for young professionals. And I mean, I don't know what the security situation was like, but I mean, as a Jew, you gotta know that if you're holding anything kind of Jewish event these days, you gotta have high security. You gotta. Like, I would truly be scared to go to, I mean, I'm not like, I don't go to Jewish religious ceremonies, but like I I would be scared to go to synagogue right now. The fatal shooting, let's see, the sold out Young Diplomats reception is described as an event bringing together Jewish young professionals 22 to 45 and the diplomatic community, according to its Eventbrite page. The event was organized by Access, the American Jewish Committee's division for young professionals. The 2 Israeli embassy staff members who were shot dead were leaving an event, according to Pamela A. Smith, chief of the Metropolitan Police Department. And like, I would think this is obviously like they were out to target these 2 people, not just Jews in general, because they were specifically Israeli embassy staff. You know, when this is an event for Jews in general, not all Israeli people, but the fact that they singled out specifically people working for Israel, not just Jews, to me says very targeted, very thought out. The theme of this year's Young Diplomats reception was Turning Pain into Purpose and features speakers from the Multi-Faith Alliance and Israel, according to the Eventbrite page. Eyewitness says DC shooter pretended to be a witness and waited for police to arrive. The man accused of killing a young couple outside the Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday night pretended to be a witness and waited for police to arrive for over 10 minutes before claiming he did it for Gaza, which obviously we didn't need him to say that to kind of figure that out. Maranuzzi, 28, said gunshots rang out shortly after the event ended at 9 p.m. There were some more shots, and then a guy came running into the center, and the security guards offered him water, trying to comfort him. He was kind of having erratic behavior. They figured he witnessed the shooting. The man asked security to call the police. Maranuzzi said one police arrived about 10 minutes later. Maranuzzi said the man took accountability for the crime, saying, I did it for Gaza, free Palestine. Interesting. So the attack here's how the attack unfolded. Around 9:08 p.m. Eastern, police received multiple calls for a shooting in the area of 3rd Street and F Street Northwest, according to Pamela A. Smith, who is the chief of the Metropolitan Police Department. Officers located one adult male and one adult female unconscious and not breathing at the scene. DC Fire and EMS responded, and despite life-saving efforts, both victims succumbed to their injuries. We know what they were leaving. Before the attack, the suspect was seen pacing back and forth outside the museum ahead of the shooting. If you see a pacing guy, call somebody. Oh, my Lord. The problem in a major city like D.C., or New York or any of these major cities is that, like, there's so much mental illness that when people are behaving erratically, city dwellers are immune to it. After the shooting, the gunman entered the museum and was detained by event security. Once handcuffed, he told security where he had discarded the weapon, which was recovered by authorities. The suspect was named Elias Rodriguez, 30, from Chicago, Illinois. He chanted "Free, Free Palestine" while in custody. Rodriguez was not previously known to police. Police say they believe he was the sole shooter, and there is no active threat remaining. And there's been one new update even since I was reading. So I think he's currently being interviewed by the FBI and DC police. But yeah, this is gonna fucking tear our country apart. So I mean, to go with that, I'm not, it's unsurprising that something like this happened actually. Especially because of this 14,000 babies will die thing that the UN started this week. And I don't want to have a conversation about like whether, or it's hard because basically what happened was this representative for the UN said again like that if like we don't get aid to Gaza in the next 48 hours, that 14,000 babies will die. And that number was wildly inflated. It was, they found out that it was like 14,000 babies maybe would have died like in a much longer period of time, like a year or something. And so that was not true. And then that caused everyone to go up and get in a fight again because like, well, yes, the number was largely inflated. That being said, though, I mean, even if one baby dies, it's a tragedy. One person dies, it's it's a tragedy. But obviously, like, you know, we respond to bigger numbers. And so the number was not 14,000. And we'll get into it in more detail. But to me, the conversation that people like, I now see pro-Israel and pro-Palestine people getting in fights, and like the pro-Israel people, I understand that they're angry that the conversation is just making Israel like look like the people of Israel. I don't want to talk about Netanyahu because he's crazy, but like making Israeli people or Jewish people look bad. And I understand that viewpoint, and I do agree to some extent by inflating the number. But the issue remains: tens of thousands of people are dying in Gaza, and they're starving, and they need aid, and they need it now, and Israel is cutting off that aid. And so children are dying, and people are dying. And so to me, when pro-Israel people come and then say, well, that was the wrong number, it's just kind of, to me, like when someone questions the number of people that died in the Holocaust. Like, some people say, oh, that number is fudged, that 6 million people died in the Holocaust. And so I say, okay, even if it was fudged by 4 million, which it was not, stop saying that. But even if I'm going to entertain your bad faith nonsense, even if just in quotes 2 million Jews died, that's still fucking crazy and should be something that's and it's a horrific happening. So to me, that it was just very odd to see Jewish people or pro-Israel people. I want to be specific about this, not be blanket to the Jews. But it was crazy to me to see pro-Israel people having this argument about numbers here, because I go, if it was 14,000 or if it was 3,000, like, thousands are dying, thousands are being denied aid, thousands are starving, and is now really the time to have this conversation? Like, I understand the conversation about everything is blown out of proportion to make like Jewish people look as bad as possible. And yes, that is upsetting. But I don't think saying it wasn't that many is like what's going to make you look like good people. And there's this guy online who, Matt, whatever, that everyone follows. He does a lot of like political stuff, Matt Bernstein. And he's just shared something that said, that the UN warns that 14,000 Palestinian babies could die in the next 2 days if Israel does not let aid into Gaza. And I like a lot of things. I engage with a lot of things. I save a lot of things. And then I kind of go back. I do that throughout the week. And then I go back when it's time to put together this show. And I really sit and I research and read everything. I'm not researching and reading everything every moment of the day. Certainly not when I'm scrolling through Instagram. But I engage with a lot of things, tap it, like it, save it, so that I have it to look back and prepare this show for you. So I liked that post in passing. Didn't think more. This was like yesterday. And I was like, I'll read more about this today because this is my designated day to spend all day on the news. And it's been working out pretty well for me. And this fucking person who I guess is a fan of mine, and if you're listening, hello, but I don't think you are based on what you wrote, had the audacity to tag me as if I am somehow involved in spreading this misinformation. So she replies to Matt Bernstein and she says, this post has been up for nearly 24 hours, even though the BBC has retracted the claim. The 14,000 figure was a projection of children at risk of malnutrition over an entire year, not actual deaths, not within 48 hours. The situation in Gaza is still dire and heartbreaking, and the majority of Israelis want this war to end too. But misrepresenting data in viral posts like this isn't activism, it's negligence. And I agree with some points she's making here, but again, I don't know that this is the argument that's going to get Israel in the good graces of the people when the publicity is already so bad. But I agree. I think she's saying like this is like part of the problem is that these numbers are, but again, a hard argument when we know tens of thousands of people have died. Civilians, okay? So it's a hard argument to make already. Then she fucking tags me, who I guess because she follows me, she saw that I tapped like on it. I didn't even write a fucking comment on it. She awakes me and drags me into this. And she goes, philanthropy gal, as someone running for public office, I hope you'll be more judicious about the posts you engage with. Accuracy matters, especially now. I mean, the composure it took me to not absolutely tear this person to shreds online is a skill that I have learned in running for mayor. And so I don't engage very much online anymore. And that is a gift that the mayoral campaign gave me, because for all those months, I knew that it could really bring down my campaign by engaging with people in the comments, and that it just never goes well. So I stopped myself. So for 5, plus months, I didn't engage, except for like random, like positive things on celebrities' accounts, but I really minimally engaged online. And I have now just trained myself to not engage online, and it's great, and I'm sticking to it. So because of that training, I was able to not call her a dumb fucking cunt who shouldn't bring me into these conversations, because let me fucking live and stop. You're policing what I'm liking? That's fucking psychotic. And then of course I go to her profile and I go and I'm like, if we want to talk about accuracy, ma'am, I've been out of the race for several weeks, so I'm not running for political office, so I can do whatever the fuck I want right now. Secondly, and then thirdly, I was going to get into a larger conversation about, like, I don't think, having arguments about whether it was 2,000 children who were going to die today or 14,000 is going to put Israel in the good graces of the public. But I digress. And so I kept all that to myself because I knew I could talk about it here. But that being said, this whole thing pissed me off. And then I went to her profile, and this lady lives in Tel Aviv. So, like, me running for mayor does not affect you in any way. Mayor does not handle Gaza. And also, mind your own fucking business. Mind your own fucking business. I know you don't listen to this show, because if you did, you'd be a more clear thinker. Accuracy matters. Accuracy matters. I'm not running for mayor anymore. I conceded 2 weeks ago. All right, babe. Or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, right? Yeah, I think it was 2 weeks ago. Time's a blur right now, but that just set me off. Anyway, so what I noticed is that a lot of places reported about the 14,000, and then they did the thing that they often do, is when they found out that information was incorrect, instead of releasing another article, it doesn't align with the story that they want to tell, so they just kind of didn't cover the story at all. So I went to honestreporting.com, which I have to tell you is owned by a Jewish group. Like, I looked who owns Honest. I have to look it up again. Who owns Honesty Reporting? But that was the first thing I did, because I'm like, oh, it's only coming up right now, because I specifically bypassed like Times of Israel and stuff when I was trying to get to the bottom of this story, because I wanted to give you a fair take on it. So then I saw this honestreporting.com, and I was like, sounds sus. And I looked, and they're clear as day on Wikipedia. It says Honest Reporting, or Honest Reporting space, is an Israeli media advocacy group. So it's like, this is not really going to be fair. But I think they still have to be reporting some facts. And I think they're just really now, because they actually did catch these news outlets in a lie that made Israel look bad, they're kind of just really enjoying it, for lack of a better word. So I do think this is pretty accurate, even though it's from an Israeli advocacy group. It says the New York Times, NBC News, Time Magazine, The Guardian, ABC News, The Independent, all supposedly reputable news organizations, all of them published uncritically one of the most grotesque and easily disprovable claims made during the war between Israel and Hamas, that 14,000 babies in Gaza would die within 48 hours. This actually reminds me a lot of the putting babies in ovens claim that was made against like Hamas, which I also ultimately could find no proof of. The claim, and again, if you have proof of any of these things, please send it to me. The claim came from Tom Fletcher, the UN humanitarian chief, who said on BBC Radio 4's Today program, there are 14,000 babies that will die in the next 48 hours unless we can reach them. It was an outrageous statement, one that the BBC, to its credit, at least challenged. Fletcher's defense, that the UN had strong teams on the ground in Gaza, no methodology, no data, just dramatic moral panic wrapped in the thin veneer of credibility that comes with a UN badge. The BBC then followed up with the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, which claimed the number referred to an IPC, Integrated Food Security Phase Classification Report. There was just one problem. The IPC report says no no such thing. It projected that 14,100 children in Gaza could experience acute malnutrition between April 2025 and March 2026, a year-long period, not 2 days and not imminent death. Again, this is a hard argument to make when we're like, we're being like, listen, they're going to be starving, but it's going to take a while. It's like, so a very hard argument to make. BBC journalists acknowledged this discrepancy, stating clearly in a subsequent piece, the IPC report says this could take place over the course of about a year, not 48 hours. That being said, yes, if you are a news outlet, pretty big mistake here. UNOCHI, I don't know if you can say UNOCA, spokesperson Jens Larky was pressed again at a news conference. He offered no figures, no data, just a vague reassurance that there are babies who are in urgent life-saving need, which, while possibly true, is not what his colleague actually claimed. And yet, despite having verified the 14,000 figure was false, the BBC continued to reprint it across its coverage in headlines, video segments, and social media posts. A clip of Fletcher's interview remains live on the BBC website without correction, clarification, or context. It even includes a denial from Hamas that it steals humanitarian aid, presented as merely an Israeli accusation, despite mountains of documented evidence to the contrary. And interesting, and I don't put that past them, that they are stealing humanitarian aid. Again, I do not believe that Hamas is at all for the people of Palestine. Again, I know other people disagree. I think Hamas is part of the problem. Let's see. In its NewsHour radio program, the BBC went further, summarizing the story with the line 14,000 babies in Gaza could die within the next 2 days without urgent aid, linking this to Israel's restrictions on aid to pressure Hamas. But of course, the BBC omitted the reason for such pressure. Hamas continues to hold hostages and refuses to disarm. I hear you. The hostages thing is just like not going to fly anymore because of all the death and destruction that's happened in Palestine. Like, it's just like not like if you're playing a numbers game here, like it's just not. Yeah, I don't know what everyone's. This is just so. Gotten so crazy at this point. While the BBC asked follow-up questions, its acknowledgement that the figure was not supported by evidence was buried. Other media didn't go that far. The New York Times included the figure in its reporting with the faint disclaimer that the UN later appeared to walk back the claim. But that's not accurate. The UN didn't walk back anything. It doubled down by falsely linking its figure to the IPC report. Time magazine ran the number as a headline and even linked to the BBC article that had already proven it false. The contradiction not mentioned. ABC News reported the number and misleadingly tied it to Israel's expanded assault in Gaza. And so it goes down and kind of just like goes through everything. Falsely implying that Fletcher or the IPC blamed Israel for mass infant deaths. NBC News took the grotesqueness up a notch. They linked Fletcher's remark to a controversial comment from Israeli politician and former IDF General Yair Golan, subtly implying that 14,000 babies were about to be killed by Israeli forces. The Guardian included Fletcher's...
The quote's way more damning.
What?
The quote by Golan.
Oh, yeah.
He said it's impossible to support an army that is displacing people, and he did say the words killing babies as a hobby.
Okay.
This is a guy who was lauded as a hero on October 7th, mind you. Fighting in the streets, Hamas invading Israel, and that's his quote on the current state of the Israeli army.
Yeah, I mean, to me, in general, when I hear either side talk about the other side, and this is the problem that I've always had way before October 7th, just fucking being in Israel, is that they have completely, as groups, they have dehumanized each other.
No, but this is one side talking about his own side. Golan was a hero on the Israeli side fighting Hamas invading Israel. And he is saying he cannot objectively look at what Israel's army is doing right now as a justified thing.
I see what you're saying. I misinterpreted what you said. Okay, yes. Let's see. The Guardian included Fletcher's incoherent defense, but still ran the figure in headlines in its first thing newsletter and as a breaking news alert. The Independent managed to publish 2 separate pieces on the claim, but only hinted that the number lacked any evidentiary basis. One article even included Fletcher's remarks, paraphrased in such a way as to give them an air of legitimacy, asked how the UN worked out that 14,000 babies may die within 48 hours. Mr. Fletcher said teams on the ground have been working hard in places such as medical centers and schools to assess need. Australia's 7 News didn't even bother with attribution. It simply declared Gaza crisis threatens 14,000 babies as aid fails to arrive. No mention of where the number came from, no verification, just a headline tailored for outrage. Let's be clear, this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a grotesque smear, a UN official suggesting without evidence that Israel was about to kill 14,000 babies. And instead of exposing the lie, the world's most influential media outlets reported it, amplified it, headlined it, even after the number was disproven. This wasn't journalism. It was narrative laundering where facts are optional, but outrage is essential. I do agree with that sentence. And it reveals something darker. When the target is Israel, truth becomes negotiable, lies become headlines, and media accountability is non-existent. I don't agree with that part. Yeah, I mean, again, it's just like, while I think we need to point out that that was a untrue number, and it is alarming that news outlets were reporting that so widely and then haven't really issued retractions overall and kind of haven't commented on it, in the large scheme of things. It's very hard for me to be on Israel's side here when we know damn well so many thousands and thousands of children and innocent people are suffering and need aid and are starving. And I don't really care what the number is. It just shouldn't be happening. And that should be upsetting to us all. And then there was like the Spectator article. I pulled Golan's quote. Oh, yeah.
Said in an interview with the Cannes public broadcaster, Israel is on the way to becoming a pariah state like South Africa was if we don't return to acting like a sane country. A sane country does not fight against civilians, does not kill babies as a hobby, and does not give itself the aim of expelling populations.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's, I don't know. It's just really crazy.
That's the opposition leader to Bibi.
Yeah, and I also like doing some. I also ran some stats, just like, I think people often like question why Israel and U.S. are so tight. Obviously, like money and arms and stuff, but like also just like where the Jewish population is. Like, so in New York City, like I broke it down specifically. New York City is the city in the U.S. with the most Jews. We have 1.3 million Jews here, and compared to 750,000 Muslim people. But worldwide, Muslims way outnumber Jews. There's 2 billion Muslims worldwide versus 15.8 million Jews. And of those 15.8 million Jews, there's only 2 places where they really exist. There's 7.2 million in Israel, and there's 6.3 million in the U.S. So it's basically they're here and there and nowhere else. And I just thought like those numbers, hearing those might help like for you to understand a little bit more what's going on, why the U.S.'s relationship with Israel and everything, like not to excuse anything, just like so that it makes a bit more sense that there are so few Jews, but they all exist in these 2 spaces. And that's obviously like also why they have the kind of military that they have protecting Israel or their space in Israel, because they like that they only have been allowed historically to like exist 2 places, and it's kind of a problem anywhere they go. I'm not saying that says, that they can then treat other people in the same space like shit and kill them and stuff. Like that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying like when you're trying to look for an answer where it seems like everything doesn't make sense, I think sometimes the numbers help a little bit. Mike, what is how long is a Spectator article? Because it's an opinion piece. I was hoping it wouldn't be that long, and then we could use that to wrap up the show if you wanted to read it.
It's not crazy long.
Okay.
Is this? Oh, you don't have access.
Yeah, I can't. So I was going to give you a reading shot. My voice is kind of fucked anyway.
Oh, it's Mike's reading hour.
It's Mike's reading hour.
Yay, let's learn. Okay, this is from The Spectator.
Which is British.
This is from Brendan O'Neill. The UN's claim about babies dying in Gaza is unraveling. Just when you thought Israel couldn't be any more evil, yesterday we learned that thousands of babies are set to perish under its ruthless writ in Gaza. 14,000 to be precise, all in the next 48 hours. Thousands of innocent lives stuffed out as the Jewish state, the most wicked of states, looks the other way. Now we know. The cry went up just how barbarous the state of Israel can be. This story spread like a pox through the internet yesterday. It infected influencers everywhere. Everywhere you looked, you'd see these cruel numbers. 14,000 babies in 48 hours. Nazi scum Israel, the mob wailed. No one can deny it now, the virtuous cried. Israel slays babies for sport. Politicians cited the coming grim death toll. Israel must let in humanitarian aid right now, they said, in order that those 14,000 souls might be saved. It's all over the papers today. This must end now, says the front page of the Daily Mirror. If not, thousands of babies will shortly die. It drove the point home with a tragic photo of an emaciated Gazan child. There's only one problem with this claim that 14,000 babies in Gaza are at risk of death by starvation in the next 48 hours. It isn't true. At best, it's a misunderstanding. Armies of activists and hacks falsely accusing the world's only Jewish nation of overseeing the largest mass death of babies of our century so far. Tell me that isn't blood libel reborn. I dare you. The story originated in comments made by a UN official on the Today program. There are 14,000 babies that will die in the next 48 hours unless we reach them, listeners were told. The UN man was pressed, gently, one should note, about how he arrived at this figure. He said something about how the UN's strong teams on the ground are feeding back such chilling predictions. It went viral. It ignited some of the worst Israelophobia and outright anti-Semitism I've seen since October 7, 2023. Social media's cesspit of bigotry bubbled even more furiously than usual. Evil, cried leftists whose entire personality is hating Israel. Satanic demons, said hard-right cranks who hate the Jewish nation because they hate Jews. And then the claim unraveled. Belatedly, the BBC offered some clarification. The UN has now said it reported that it's possible there will be 14,100 severe cases of malnutrition among Gazan kids aged 6 to 59 months over the next year if more aid does not get through. We need to get aid in ASAP, the UN said, ideally within the next 48 hours. In short, there is no calamitous prospect of 14,000 babies starving in the next 2 days. Thank God. Rather, the UN is concerned that there might be that number of acute cases of hunger among very young kids if nothing changes, aid-wise, over the next year. This is a wholly different claim to the one that whipped up such a storm of frothing anti-Israeli animus. It's good the BBC has offered clarification. Now we wait. The UN's explanation for why one of its officials made such a thin and incendiary claim on live radio. The Spectator has contacted the UN to ask. Perhaps it was an honest mistake, but whatever their answer, I feel it's too late. The damage is done. Israel has once again been libeled against Christendom, and Hamas will be rubbing its hands in glee at the spread of the vile calumny online that says the Jewish state is blasé, if not actively keen on the mass death of children. It is unforgivable to so gravely undermine Israel while giving a propaganda boost to the army of anti-Semites it is at war with. The UN has some serious explaining to do. Maybe BBC Verify can get on the case. Those numbers, 14,000 in 48 hours, should live in infamy. For me, they're up there with the 45 minutes claim made in the dodgy dossier in Iraq. Both are figures that fan the flames of war. One led to the destruction of Iraq. The other threatens to inject momentum into the Hamas' racist crusade against the Jewish state. Shame on those who have so completely suspended their critical faculties and drunk so deeply from the cup of Israelophobia that they accepted these numbers without question. That's the most unsettling thing in this affair. The voracious online appetite for horror stories about Israel. Every claim about Israel, regardless of its veracity, is laughed up by radical activists and digital mobs who have convinced themselves that this is the cruelest nation to ever exist. Israelophobia is out of control. It is the most dangerous bigotry of our times. It has now even breathed life back into the medieval libel that said Jews long for the blood of innocents. The importance of confronting this sickness in our societies cannot be overstated. His new book, the
After the Pogrom, 7 October, Israel and the Crisis of Civilization is out now.
Interesting. And then he himself is his name is Brendan O'Neill, so I'm guessing he's not a Jew. Well, I guess he could be if his mother is Jewish and his dad was something else, but certainly he's not a Jew on both sides. I would guess that someone who's that into this has to be Jewish. I'm trying to look. Brendan O'Neill. The Spectator, is he Jewish? He's English. Well, I know that, but that's different. Oh, no. Since October, here's my answer. Since October 7th, Brendan O'Neill has been one of the most vocal non-Jewish supporters of Israel. Wow, that's extremely interesting because when I saw, that was an article I couldn't have access to until I got to the studio. But when I saw that, I was so curious to hear what he was saying because when I saw the name Brendan O'Neill, I was like, what's the point he's trying to make here? Because usually non-Jews are never talking in support of Israel, but here we are. Very interesting. Again, it's just. Even though, factually, I agree with some of the points he's making, to write this, sassy op-ed when we know so many people are suffering, I just don't think is the move. And I do think that Jews and Israel are treated unfairly in many circumstances, but I don't. I just don't think that this is the fight over this. When we know the death toll for Gaza is just so much higher than the death toll in Israel, and also the death toll in Israel has basically it happened and then it froze, whereas the death toll in Gaza continues to rise. So while I do see a lot of problems with the way people speak about Israel and the way people speak about Jews and the way people use this as an excuse to openly hate Jews as they always secretly did, I just don't think this is the approach, and in fact kind of makes Israel look more like a monster, or Israel, people who are pro-Israel look more like monsters. And then I was looking at footage of the Israel parade in New York City, and everyone just smiling and waving the flags, and I go, how can anyone be smiling with what's happening there? I don't know. Anyway, that's our show. It's very late, and it's been a sad day all around.
Can we, it is very, very late, so I don't want to get into it now, but I really want to do that story about the pizza place on Long Island, and it was brought to my attention by a local resident. So can I tease that for next week?
Oh yeah, or if you want to, whatever you want to do. If you want to tease you, and if you want to quickly summarize it now, whatever you want. No, I'm sorry, I forgot that you wanted to do that, and I had asked you to do that.
Well, it extends just from our conversation last week, where it was this idea of if you don't like a thing, if you're morally against it, speak with your wallet and boycott a thing. This gentleman in Long Island, his pizza place had a night where the restaurant was closed for a private party. It was a fundraiser to give money to Gazans, right? Mm-hmm. Who, as we just read in that article, despite what the numbers say, are starving. No one's disagreeing with that. There is an aid blockade, and these people are starving. And this guy was doing a charity thing to raise money for them. He was protested strongly by all the Jewish groups came out. There was on the night of the function, there was large picketing and protesting. A gentleman who's currently running for town supervisor came out and did one of the video that I sent you is one of the I can't believe sold that when I sent that to you, by the way.
Well, don't. Okay. So what Mike is leaving out of it is this guy. I actually think I follow him online already, or I did at least for a period of time. So it's Dave who's running for this. He's always running for something. I don't know if he's ever actually held office, but his name is Dave Kirpin, right? So he's currently a politician. But when I was in college, he first was introduced to the public by being this kind of the butt of this big joke on this reality romance show called Paradise Hotel, which is my favorite reality show of all time. And one of the main reasons Tommy and I are best friends to this day. But that being said, it's very hard for me to take anything this man does seriously because he was tricked on a reality show by a girl much hotter than him, who I also follow on social media, whose name is Charla.
Hey, I mean, come on. We all feel for Dom Hall Gleason and Ex Machina. You know what I mean?
I don't get the reference.
You didn't see Ex Machina?
I did, but wait. I did. Wait, so is that the main actor?
Yeah, Dom Hall Gleason. He's the Scottish dude who gets tricked by the robot.
Oh, okay.
We all would get tricked by the robot.
I get it now. I just didn't know the actor's name. I did say Ex Machina
though. Okay, yeah. So this is the video he put out, and I agree. I mean, you know, whether this guy is or is not a joke, he was able to organize people, get a number of people together for a protest of an event. You can see in the video here.
I don't understand why you're going to protest an event that's private and that you're not involved in.
I mean, listen to his reasoning.
Hi, I'm standing right outside Bellissimo Pizza in Port Washington, where they are hosting an event tonight for the Palestine Action Long Island. Palestine Action Long Island is a group dedicated to liberating Israel. They are anti-Israel, and while everyone has the right to have any opinion they want, this is no place for hate. Anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, and we, the people of Port Washington and the people of North Hempstead, will not tolerate such hatred, and we will not support businesses that promote such hatred. I'm Yisrael Chai.
So crazy way to end it.
I'm Israel. That feels... I don't know.
Well, and also to say that at the end of it, now, like, again, like, it's like, now we're making it like all Jews are Israelis, and like, we're not.
The fact that he said anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, just standing on that is like, all right, this is literally what every Jew who I've spoken to, who's a decent person and I agree with their beliefs, has told me is not the case. Well, you, who I have not met, who is ending conversations with Israel Heil. Like,
yeah, that was a crazy
what
way.
What are we doing?
That's a crazy way to end it when you're trying to make a point. And it also just like sounds scary. Like if you're going to say it with like the thick Hebrew accent, I would not, from optics standpoint, I would not recommend. And then I also went to the website for the organization that they were fundraising for, and it's like pretty radical insane.
Regardless, this event
was
to raise money to send aid to people who are being blockaded and starved.
For sure. But also, even if it was to raise money for anything, like it's a private business hosting an event that they want to. Even if they were having a meeting about how they hate Jews, great. It's a private event. Eat pizza and talk about how you hate us. That's your right.
Instead, the business is now. This was posted 15 weeks ago. The business is now closed.
Well, probably. I'm guessing it became a danger, or
no. I mean, it just got boycotted that hard. This guy organized like a giant protest, got the whole town riled up. He's running for town supervisor. He has some kind of weight and pull in the town.
It's
the pizza place cannot survive this.
Well, it's interesting that I'm guessing that has a large Jewish population there. That's weird to me that the pizza parlor owner would have taken that risk then. I mean, good for him. Take a risk for what you believe in. I'm all for that. I commend him. He should be in the Democratic Party because obviously he's making bold moves and not being a coward, and good for him. Yeah. Damn. All right. Well, thank you for covering that. Dave Kirpin. Ugh, I can't believe he keeps creeping into my life. So that's the show, guys. Please make sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube. Our number keeps creeping up. I really appreciate that. Love that. Going to get more content to you. Let's see. It's Without a Country on YouTube. And then, of course, follow me on social media at Philanthropy Gal. And make sure if you have anything to email me about, your municipal politics, any of the things that we talked about today, it's Without a Country podcast at gmail.com. And then, Mike, you have an event this weekend, right, that you want to talk about?
Unfortunately, I'm up against the game 2 of the Knicks playoff game, but if that doesn't
no one who's
excite
watching,
you,
me and you are the only Knicks fans. I don't think anyone who watches this show likes the Knicks the way we do.
we are weirdly aligned. I took that test earlier.
Oh, the mayoral test?
Guess who I told one to vote for?
Jessica Ramos?
You know it.
She's a great candidate. I'm so bummed. There was honestly a point when I first started running where I wanted to I just didn't think she would was going to respond well because who the fuck am I? But I just wanted to contact her team and be like
her opponent.
Yeah, well, but I'm not really I'm not. I wanted to be like, yo, let's work together because you know policy like none of the other candidates, but I know how to talk to the public in a way that you are just completely missing the mark on. And I was like, I'll give you the glow up and you give me the policy and we work together and we can take this city by storm. And I don't know, I guess I should have done that because she really again, the moment I saw her, I go, every time I see her speak or listen to her interview or listen to podcasts, and I've listened to a lot of stuff she's been on, she is just so knowledgeable, but just doesn't have that. She's not being branded correctly. Her team is feeling her. Maybe, I don't know. She's not getting enough money, so she didn't have the way to do it. But again, if you're taking a social media approach, you don't really need very much money to make a big splash. Anyway, that's my thoughts. But that's very interesting that we both, maybe because municipal politics and in many ways I think are less divisive and more just you can really talk about what do working people need. I think it's actually more realistic that someone who voted for Trump, or even if it wasn't counted, and someone who voted for Kamala would agree on municipal politics, which is interesting. Perhaps it's municipal politics that will bring us all back together as a country.
You know what else will bring people together?
Coming to the American Dream Mall this weekend.
Coming to the American Dream Mall this Friday, May 23rd, kickoff Memorial Day weekend the right way with Armored Combat Gladiator Z3. It's going to be myself, Chris from Brooklyn, and Jason Mayhem Miller, former UFC fighter, on commentary with us. Going to be an absolute blast. Titan weight. One guy is 7 feet tall and 500 pounds in armor. I'm so excited to watch this guy fight.
Well, and now the combat's happening live in the mall?
Yeah, so there's a stadium inside the mall.
Oh, so I missed that. I've been to this mall multiple times. Guys, if you have it, just if you want to have a fun, it's going to be a rainy, cold Memorial Day weekend, so you're going to need inside activities. So go support Mike, and then also check out the American Dream Mall. It's amazing. And as a Jersey, a little girl who grew up in New Jersey, I want to tell you guys that malls are not dying, and the American Dream Mall is proof of that. Also, one of the owners of that mall used to come to Perfectly Centered pretty often, so we love American Dream Mall.
Yeah, they won't let us pillow fight in armor throughout the venue, which is really frustrating me because I feel like it would drive us some ticket sales. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Gladiator Z3, the most fun you can have with your clothes on.
So fun. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for supporting this quest for the truth. I appreciate you very much. Again, if you want to subscribe to the Patreon, it's patreon.com/withoutacountry. And tell a friend about the show. Yeah, take care. Enjoy your municipal elections. Bye.